Chapter 1143. I don't care who the other party is. I just can't take this lying down. Mrs. Lin dragged her right hand that was wrapped in a bandage. Her eyes were blurred with tears, but her arrogance did not diminish at all. She came to our Lin family to shoot people. I must make her regret bullying people like this. Old Master Lin was so infuriated by his daughter-in-law's ignorance that he only wanted to sneer. Then go ahead and sue her. Lin Feng, divorce this woman right now. If you don't even think about staying in the Lin family anymore. Mrs. Lin did not expect to end up like this. How could old Master Lin let Lin Feng divorce her? It was such a small matter. Moreover, she was the one who was injured. Shouldn't he help her? Mrs. Lin was not convinced. She turned to look at Lin Feng. You won't divorce me, right? Fengzi, we have been husband and wife for so many years. Now that I am the one who is being shot, can't I vent my anger? Vent your anger? Lin Feng threw the hat in his hand. How else do you want to vent your anger? It's fine if you usually step on the low and bully the high in the courtyard, but why do you even bully a child? Now you have provoked someone you shouldn't have provoked. You even said that no matter who the other party is, you can't take this lying down. How can you be so capable? Are you really not afraid of anything? Then let me tell you who is the one who came looking for the Lin family today. It's Hellion Wei Wei, who you're bent on making connections with. After hearing the words Hellion Vivian, Mrs. Lin, who had been noisy just now, was completely dumbfounded. She froze on the spot in a daze. She could not believe what she had heard. The little country bumpkin's mother was Hellion Vivian. How was that possible? How was that possible? Mrs. Lin was no stranger to the name Hellion Vivian. The madam of the Ju Wei group, the legendary woman she had always wanted to know. However, the mistake was that she had never seen her before. She did not know that Hellion Vivian actually had a daughter. Mrs. Lin reached out and grabbed Lin Feng's sleeve. Unfortunately, Lin Feng did not want to hear what she was saying. In fact, even if Hellion Vivian hadn't come, old Master Lin wouldn't have let Madame Lin off so easily. Just because she dared to go to the Bai family like that. It was only a matter of time before old Master Lin stopped wanting such a daughter-in-law. That night, old Master Lin personally went to the Bai family. As usual, he lowered himself even more. Others might not understand, but only he knew that without the old chief's support, he could only go back to his hometown and feed the pigs. The Lin family was in a good position now, but they couldn't forget what they had done for them just because they were in a good position. This was the foundation of being a person. The two people who had opinions about the Bai family also had their own ways of dealing with them. They had not been in the military compound for long. Only then did they know that the Bai, Shao and Li families had joined forces. This time I've brought down all the people who could be brought down. That vicious woman from the Lin family won't be back for a while. Even Uncle Lin has been sent to the provincial city to reflect on himself. This is good for the Lin family. It also saves that woman from causing any more trouble. Now our courtyard belle is crying and asking for her mother. Bai Jun, tell me, how are you going to thank me? I'll let you copy my English homework, but there's one thing. You have to learn your spoken language yourself, Bai Jun said as he picked up little Baldy, who had washed her face, and put her back on the sofa. When Li Hailu saw little Aju, he wanted to tease her, but it was obvious that little Aju was not the same as before. What's wrong with the child? Why don't you eat? Bai Jun's hand also paused. He saw little Baldy leaning against the window and looking outside again. He did not know what the child was looking at, but he always had an illusion in his heart that little Aju's strange behavior was related to the little boy he had seen before. However, after investigating for a long time, he could not find any clues. This made Bai Jun very concerned. This concern did not subside even after the summer vacation had passed and he started school. Master Bai usually did not do things out of line. Bringing the child to school was probably the most rebellious thing he had ever done. However, he was really worried about leaving little Aju in the courtyard, so he could only bring her with him. Fortunately, the school had also informed him. Mother Xiao was also the principal. In addition, Bai Jun had always been a good student. He had basically learned all the elementary school knowledge. The books he was reading now were not even understood by some junior high school students. Therefore, little Aju following Bai Jun to school would not affect Bai Jun's studies. However, arranging for a child to enter the classroom like this would attract the attention of others. Little Baldy was afraid that Bai Jun would be in a difficult position, so she immediately said that she could wait for her little brother outside. Bai Jun did not agree at first, but he could not bear the child's insistence. Outside the classroom was a corridor. It was clean and beautiful. When Baijun was in class, little Baldy sat by Baijun's window and preached to the little ants that came and went. Occasionally she would recite scriptures. Little Baldy always remembered that she was going to be the abbot in the future, so she could not betray her Buddha. On the other hand, the teachers who came to class had never seen such an obedient child. They could not help but look in little Baldy's direction. When it was time for class, Baijun would carry little Aju into the classroom and put her in his seat. Coincidentally, little Gangsterly was sitting at the same table as him. Little Gangsterly finally understood what it was like to not want a brother when you have a sister. Ever since little Aju came, he could not sleep in class or after class. Baijun, who was obsessed with his sister, would kick him when he did not see little Aju for a while. Now his grades had increased and he was even called to the office by the teacher for questioning, asking if he had copied during the exam. Seriously. He also had times when he wrote his own questions. Was it good? Little Gangsterly stuffed a mouthful of sandwich into his mouth gloomily. When he turned around, Baijun was feeding little Aju yogurt with a small spoon. That gentle look made all the girls in the class want to scream. Anyway, Baijun had been receiving more and more love letters recently. Little Gangsterly looked at him with resentment. Why didn't any girl realize how good he was? Little Aju ate very happily. She ate one mouthful after another while playing with the little Rubik's Cube that Baijun had handed to her. Baijun smiled and wiped the child's mouth. Wait for another class. We'll be home soon. Little brother, don't worry about me. I'll be obedient. Little Baldy said seriously, but her big head was a little itchy. She stretched out her little claws and scratched again and again. Chapter 1144. What's wrong? Baijun watched from the side, but the child had heat rash because it was too hot outside. Without thinking, little Baldy lowered his head and showed him. My hair has grown out. I need to use a hairbrush. Baijun was stunned. It was not that there was only a layer of fur on that little bald head. Keep it first. I'll cut it for you in the future. Although he said that, Baijun had long known that little Baldy was a girl. How could he really raise the child to be a manly girl? Although little Baldy always subconsciously grew in that direction, young Master Bai still had a plan to raise the child. His heart was clear. Little Baldy also gradually realized that he was not the same as other little boys. He was similar to those fragrant girls. Everyone in the class liked little Aju very much, especially the English teacher who taught Baijun. In the past, Baijun had even said that this English teacher had grammatical mistakes. One had to know how embarrassing this was. She felt that she was not facing a primary school student at all, but a university professor. Ever since little Aju came, there was one time when Baijun was so happy to see his sister that he did not even care about her. Moreover, little Baldy was indeed obedient. He was only 4 years old, but he never made a fuss. There was always a little white cat lying on top of his head. Usually when he sat outside the classroom, he did not forget to help the cleaning auntie pick up the plastic water bottles on the ground. He was very familiar with the school's employees. However, there was one thing. No matter where little Baldy was, with a word from Baijun, he would run back. Ever since he brought little Aju along, Baijun, who had never eaten snacks, would always stuff a lot of things in his pocket to prevent little Baldy from getting hungry. Little Aju could eat, and this had not changed until now. Her pink and tender cheeks were pouted like a little squirrel. It was almost winter. Little Aju was a little taller, but it was only a little taller. It was basically negligible. Compared to Baijun, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. For the entire December, Lord Bai had been thinking about what clothes to buy for the child. In the end, he still bought her a red panda down jacket. It did not have a tail or ears, but little Aju was too cute. Even without these things, she could still sway around and give people the feeling of a beautiful little raccoon. Just like that, she was held by Baijun's hand. The rate of people turning their heads was always exceptionally high. Everyone in the school wanted to talk to Baijun, especially those girls. In the past, with Class Beauty Lin around, it was not easy for them to make a move. Now that they heard that Class Beauty Lin and Baijun had a grudge, they all felt a little moved. Don't underestimate a primary school student's first awakening of love. A 5th grader already knows what a love letter is. She also knew that it would be more effective to make a move on Aju, so she came to her shyly. What kind of girls do you like? Little Baldy frowned. He didn't know what kind of girl little brother liked, but little brother had said that bad food was a blessing. Thus, little Baldy answered seriously, "Yes, I can." The girls were speechless. Master Bai's aesthetic sense was really strange. However, it had to be said that after little Baldy's answer, many male students realized that their desk mates no longer complained about losing weight. They ate what they wanted and grew taller. As the campus belle Yuan Ting Ting was the last one to look for little Baldy. Behind her were a few girls who were dressed in a Western style. They were commonly known as followers. "You're Bai Juan's sister? Then give this letter to him and tell him that I'm waiting for him in the school's boulevard." Yuan Ting Ting didn't know where she learned this from. Bai Juan's eyes darkened, but he did not say anything. He held little Baldy's hand and entered the mall. Every time they went out they would go shopping. Bags of all sizes were basically filled with little Aju's clothes. Little Aju changed into new pajamas that day. After taking a shower she handed a big hairbrush to Bai Juan. Then she pouted her little body and revealed her head. "Little brother, I've been waiting for many days, but you haven't shaved my head. I've observed it. You must have forgotten." Chapter 1145. For the first time Master Bai, who was awe-inspiring in the courtyard, felt a little speechless. After all, he had dragged it on for so long. He always thought that the child had long forgotten about shaving her head. Why was little Aju still thinking about it? Of course, Bai Juan did not want the child to become a little monk again. It was not easy for him to grow a little furry hair, so how could he cut it for her again? One had to know that he had spent a lot of effort to make her stop insisting that she was a boy. Now if he shaved her head again the child would become a complete tomboy. Although little Aju's boyfriend power was often off the charts, Master Bai still did not want the child to be in any danger. Of course, his child had to be cherished in the palm of his hand. Master Bai's 3 views probably did not matter. Just this kind of stubbornness in her youth. Bai Juan would not allow little Aju to shave her head bald again. But who was Master Bai? He was first-rate at coaxing children. He would definitely not say it directly. Therefore Bai Juan looked at the extremely cute little panda in front of him. He reached out and hugged the little girl in his arms. He gently patted little Aju's back. "Aju, do you know why you always grow so slowly? Everyone knows that height is little Aju's most fatal weakness." The little girl immediately shook her head and said very seriously, "I don't know. Because you always don't grow your own hair." Master Bai had always been good at studying. At such a young age he gave people the feeling that he was a student of Tsinghua University. Think about it carefully. Those martial nephews you saw in the temple, did they all have hair in the beginning? Little Aju thought for a moment and nodded her head. Master Bai continued to fool her. "Are they very tall?" Little Aju nodded again. "There was a martial nephew who looked like a big bear. That's because he grew his hair." Bai Juan lied without blinking. In fact, Master Bai knew better than anyone else that those people in the temple had all committed crimes. Moreover, they had committed major crimes. Other than some people who were committed by high IQs, they were basically all burly men, so their height was definitely not low. Little Aju tilted her head in confusion. "Grew his hair?" "You're right." Bai Juan had also read the Buddhist scriptures, so he understood the child's thinking very well. He reached out and pulled the small strap on the little panda in his arms. "Isn't there a sentence in our Buddhist scriptures, 'The sea of bitterness is boundless, repent and be saved'? You've been bald since you were young, so how can you express your respect for Buddha? Moreover, all of us keep our hair but you don't. Being bald in the temple is a sign of respect to the Buddha. Being bald outside the temple will only affect your growth." Little Aju's face was solemn as she listened very carefully. She really had not considered this before. Come to think of it, not to mention his martial nephews, even his senior martial brothers used to have hair. It seemed that she had to grow her hair out first. "I will never shave my head again." After the little person finished speaking seriously, she lay on Bai Juan's body. She was so soft that she really looked like a little panda. Bai Juan had always been good to her. Ever since the two of them separated last time, they had never had any conflicts and had always slept together. At 8:30 p.m., it was probably time for Bai Juan to tell little Aju a bedtime story. The little person's favorite action was to use one of her little claws to grab one of her calves. The other calf had to be placed on Bai Juan's body. It always looked a little clingy. Bai Juan never despised the child for sticking to him. On the contrary, the more it was like this, the better his mood was. Even Master Li knew that if he wanted to ask Bai Juan to do something, little Aju had to be present. In this way the chances of success were as high as 90%. Of course, ever since little Aju came to the Bai family, there was an unwritten rule between the little friends. That was, they were not allowed to call Bai Jun between 8:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. Whoever called would have to wait for Bai Jun to give them a cold shoulder the next day. This was the time for little Aju to sleep. Bai Jun had to coax the child. It was the same today, but the only difference was that after little Aju finished listening to the story, she did not go to sleep immediately. Instead she arched her small body and lay in Bai Jun's arms. She played with the small quilt and asked in a childish voice, "Little brother, what kind of girl do you like?" Bai Jun, who was still thinking about covering the little girl with the quilt, suddenly paused. For the second time in his life he felt choked by someone. Helpless, little Aju seemed to be very curious about this matter. Her big bright eyes looked at him as if she would not sleep today if he did not tell her. Bai Jun had no choice but to smile and say, "Why did you ask all of a sudden?" "Some of the older sisters asked me. Other than knowing that you like girls who can eat a lot, I don't know anything else." As little Aju said this, she somersaulted. "So I told them this." Bai Jun looked at her silly and cute appearance and wanted to laugh. "But in the future when they ask you questions, just say that you don't know either. Little brother is not happy that others ask you that. Troublesome." Little Aju seemed to understand. "Then I won't ask anymore." Bai Jun carried the child over and hugged her in his arms. "Of course it's fine for Aju to ask, but this is a secret between you and me. You can't tell others. Not even Li Hai Lu. I can't even tell him." When the little girl heard that she could not even tell her best friend, her expression immediately became serious. "Little brother, don't worry. I swear on my name as the future temple host that I will never tell anyone the secret between you and me." Bai Jun's eyes were filled with a smile. "I like furry girls who roll around on the bed. I eat a lot and have great strength. I want to be a temple host." Little Aju paused and her eyes lit up. "Isn't that me?" "It's you." Bai Jun really had unprecedented patience for Aju. "Can you sleep now?" The little girl nodded heavily. She put down the small quilt that she was playing with and covered the two of them. She was very manly. "Sleep." Bai Jun coaxed her before quietly standing up. Then he pushed open the door and walked downstairs. The first thing he did was to call Li Hai Lu back. "What did you just send? Didn't we agree to play games together today? The few of us are waiting. Is little Aju asleep?" "I'll go online now. I can't play too late. I still have math class tomorrow." I know. "Master, go online quickly. We've been waiting for you for a long time. One more thing." Bai Jun paused for a moment. Li Hai Lu immediately realized that it was an important matter. "What? Don't always let those girls send love letters to Aju. She's still young." Chapter 1146. By now, everyone knew that the child that the Bai family brought back was Master Bai's life. Master Li immediately nodded. "No problem. But Master Bai, I have to give you a piece of advice. This is all your fault for being too handsome and too attractive. Keep a low profile in the future, understand? Get lost. Turn on the computer and connect." Bai Jun laughed softly. Master Li was very excited. "To be honest, leave a way out for us brothers. Do you know what it means to be single? Look, we're almost in the 6th grade now, right? When we're in the 6th grade you can still live peacefully for a year. When we're in the middle school there will be other students. At that time, there will definitely be many female students who will send you love letters. You should consider our feelings." "No, that's not right. It's not us, it's me. Shaolin, that boring man, actually has girls who like him. I don't understand. I'm so handsome, why doesn't anyone send me love letters? To think that I secretly spray my mother's perfume before going to school every day. Don't these girls smell it?" Bai Jun slowly turned on the computer. "No girl likes a girl who sprays enough female perfume. No wonder you received a boy's confession." "Shut up." Master Li was scared. "Don't talk about that idiot. One day I will kill him." Bai Jun chuckled. "I think he treats you well and is very sincere in marrying you home. Anyway, you two have been engaged when you were a child. At that time, didn't you always look forward to going to junior high and seeing the Princess Gu in your heart? Why didn't you look forward to it after meeting him in advance?" "That's because I always thought that he was a girl." "Tell me, why is a boy called Gu Rao? Isn't this deliberately making people misunderstand?" Master Li let out a long sigh. To think that I, Master Li, have kept my chastity for him for more than 10 years. It's all a trick. Bai Juan reminded him, you're just 10 years old this year. I've kept my chastity for my Princess Gu since I was in my mother's womb. Little Gangster Li gritted his teeth and said, who would have thought that he was a man? Forget it, let's not talk about him anymore. Let's focus on you. If you continue to be a public nuisance to our boys when you enter junior high, you will receive even more love letters. Those girls are not stupid. When they see that I can't deliver a love letter, they will definitely make a move on little Aju. If you don't want her to have any more trouble, you should find a girl as soon as possible. My old man said that actually getting a wife is just like that. It is quite boring. When little Gangster Li said this, little Gangster Li's mother had just returned. At that time his father was also beside his mother. He looked at his wife very loyally and didn't care about what Li Hailu was saying at all. By the time he reacted, his wife had already stopped him from entering the house. She even asked him to reflect on why he felt that marriage was boring. Therefore that night Li Hailu was beaten up by his father again. However, after hearing what he said, Lord Bai did have some concerns. After turning off the computer, Bai Juan returned to his room. Looking at the little girl who was sleeping soundly with her little belly exposed, his eyes darkened. Little Aju came down from the mountain. There were some things that he did not want the child to worry about, especially these unimportant things. Moreover, the child was still so young. It was not very good to be exposed to things like or dislike so early. It was fine to say that he was selfish or that he did not know how to teach children. He did not want Aju to understand what it meant to like so early. Because it was very likely that once she knew what that kind of feeling was, she would leave him. The current Bai Juan could no longer believe what would happen to him if the little girl in front of him was no longer around. If the other party had never appeared, he could eat alone, shower alone, and sleep alone. But she just had to appear. She was so soft and small, but when something happened, her first reaction was to protect him. She even said that she had promised her grandfather that she would take good care of him. And because of the matter of being called a country bumpkin not long ago, she gave him a lot of money and said that she would support him in the future. He did not want anyone to know how cute his little Aju was at all. He clearly knew that this was not right. But at this moment, Bai Juan let himself go. He did not want little Aju to leave him. He never wanted to. Bai Juan reached out and hugged the child in his arms. It was as if this was the only way to calm the uneasiness in his heart. In fact, this matter was easy to solve. As long as he did not let Aju come into contact with those so-called love letters again. Just like that, day after day passed. It was another romantic end of summer. This summer vacation should be the happiest summer vacation Li Hailu had ever had. Because he had entered junior high school, there was no homework to do. The few people in the courtyard were playing unbridled. Of course, even if there were no rules, they still had to go home at 7 o'clock. Because little Aju was around, they could not be too unruly. Otherwise, when the time came, the child would definitely chant scriptures to them. They could endure it, but they could not endure Master Bai doting on the child. It was true that little Aju did whatever she said. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that little Aju was very important to Master Bai. Those who wanted the Bai family to do something had long thought about this matter. Otherwise, there would be rumors outside that if they wanted to make the eldest young master of the Bai family happy, as long as they praised little Aju a few times, the matter would be considered settled. Little Aju was obedient, but her strength was so great that it hurt the self-esteem of these youths. Sometimes Bai Juan liked to read in the courtyard. He asked Auntie Wang to cut a few pieces of frozen watermelon and sat on a chair made of reeds. He lowered his eyes and studied the third-grade questions in his hand. Bai Juan had always been like this. Before he entered the first grade, he had already learned the knowledge of the third grade. This was Master Bai's nature. Little Aju sat beside him, holding a large cattail leaf fan in her hand. She fanned herself again and again, not tired at all. She was even humming Buddhist songs. Bai Juan knew how to teach children. He changed the Buddhist songs into an English version and gave it to little Aju. Sometimes he would hold the little girl and teach her a few Chinese questions. Little Aju was very serious when she studied. She just liked to scratch her big head. She was about to turn 5 years old. She had already become a little girl with a doll's head. Her hair was neither long nor short, just enough to cover her small pointed chin, making the child's eyes bigger and more beautiful. All of this seemed to have become the most beautiful scenery in the courtyard. Everyone who passed by the Bai family could see the young master of the Bai family holding a cute little panda in his arms, seriously learning English, mathematics and Chinese. Every time Li Bawang's father saw this scene, he would drag Li Bawang out and beat him up. A 10-year-old young man was not as obedient as a 5-year-old child. Beat him up. Chapter 1147. After the summer vacation, the children in the courtyard became real junior high school students. Although the 6th grade was only 1 year away from junior high school. However, for children of that age, this was a qualitative leap. Other than the desire to become beautiful like when they were young, most of the girls really felt touched. This year, little Aju successfully entered the primary school of number 1 high school. She was in the same school as Bai Juan, but one was in the east and the other was in the west. At first, the teacher thought that little Aju was too small and thought that she was not old enough. Who would have thought that little Aju would do the test and even know the questions of the 3rd and 4th grades? Little Aju did not want to be in the 1st grade either. It was not because of anything else, but because she was afraid that she would not be able to control herself and beat up the children in the class. After all, they were so young. What if she broke them with one punch? Thinking of these things, little Aju was a little conflicted. Later, after learning from Master Li that her little brother had skipped a grade, she began to strongly request to go directly to the 3rd grade. Even if Xiao Lin's mother was the principal, she could not use her personal power too much. She was wearing the little tiger's clothes and said seriously, "Auntie Xiao, can I take the test like little brother did before?" Li Buddha said that I have to follow the rules. If I pass, Auntie Xiao will let me go to the 3rd grade, okay? This way when I beat people up I won't have so many scruples. I just saw that the children in the 3rd grade are very strong like Master Li. Mother Xiao was amused by the little girl's seriousness and did not know whether to laugh or cry. When Master Li heard this from the side, he felt that he had fallen into a deep pit. After all, Mother Xiao was an adult, so she thought more. She turned her head and asked Bai Juan, "Little Juan, what do you think? Do you also agree with little Aju skipping a grade? If she could not keep up, it would be very difficult for little Aju to study." "Auntie Xiao, don't worry. I will teach her well." Mother Xiao understood what Bai Juan meant when he said such polite words. It was said that little Juan doted on the child. Today she saw that he lived up to his reputation. "Then let's pass the test first." She had to rely on her strength to speak. This way she would not be a laughingstock. Little Aju immediately nodded in agreement. Don't expect to see the determination of a tough girl to learn. In little Aju's words, she was going to be a temple abbot in the future. How could she not even pass an exam? In fact, there were other students who skipped grades in primary school, but under normal circumstances they would only skip 1 grade. There was no one like her who had never been to school before and went straight to 3rd grade as soon as she came. Among the 3 students taking the exam, Aju was the youngest. She was writing the test paper in a daze. Because he used to be a little monk, the child had developed the habit of knocking his head with a pencil. Li Hailu, Xiao Lin and the others were all watching outside the classroom. Li Hailu had always felt that things like exams were specially created to torture people. He really did not understand why little Aju was so passionate about exams. She was really like who raised her. She had the same hobby as Lord Bai. However, to be honest, Li Hailu was still a little worried. His fingers were on the window as he said to Xiao Lin very seriously, "Will Aju be okay? Do you want us to help her cheat?" "Help her cheat?" Xiao Lin glanced at him indifferently. "Don't forget there was one time when you didn't know how to write. It was Aju who taught you." Li Hailu was really angry. He wanted to help their child, so why was he being attacked again? In any case, the few of them had been together for a long time, so they would kick each other without saying a word. After saying a few words, they started to make a fuss. Bai Juan only stood quietly in the corridor, looking at the little girl who was scratching her head. He was afraid that little Aju would be hungry if she took too long to do the questions. Fortunately, the number of questions was not big and little Aju was the first to hand in the paper. After giving the teacher the paper, she ran out of the classroom like a little tiger and threw herself straight into Bai Juan's arms. Bai Juan reached out and caught the child. "Are the questions difficult?" "They're okay." Little Aju raised her little face. "It's just that I got hungry as I was writing, so I didn't write the questions in front." Li Hailu was puzzled. "You didn't write the questions in front? Shouldn't it be that you didn't write the questions in the back?" Little brother said that exams are not the same thing as studying. Exams are about strategy. The questions in the back are more points than the ones in the front. You have to do the questions with more points correctly. When the time comes, even if you don't have time or if an accident happens, it doesn't matter if you lose a few points. After little Aju finished speaking, she blinked her big eyes and said to Bai Juan, "Little brother, why doesn't Li Hailu understand such a simple principle?" Bai Juan picked up the child and said as he walked, "Because he's stupid." Li Hailu was speechless. Because Shaolin was there, they knew the results of the exam on the first day. Although little Aju did not do the best in the exam, she still exceeded the cutoff score by a lot. There was no problem for her to directly enter the 3rd grade. For this reason, the Bai family specially held a celebration party. After learning the news of skipping a grade, Li Hailu was beaten up by his father again. Because they had to check the score before entering junior high school, Li Hailu's score was simply incomparable to little Aju's. Li Hailu felt that he was a scam. Why did he have to have such a group of top students by his side? It was one thing for Master Bai to be a freak. Even the child he raised was so super. He would not play with him anymore in the future. He would blacklist him. Although he said that when school started, Li Hailu still followed Bai Juan to send little Aju to the classroom. The 3rd grade children all looked at each other and then turned their gazes to little Aju. Everyone's eyes were filled with curiosity. At first, Mother Xiao was worried that little Aju would not be able to withstand the gazes of her classmates. Later she was not worried about this. She began to worry about how she would deal with it if another little boy came over and said that little Aju had beaten him to tears. A 3rd grade boy was beaten to tears by a 6-year-old girl. This little Aju had always relied on her martial arts to suppress others. When the little girls in the class were bullied, that little shadow would immediately rush out. For this reason, little Aju successfully became the class belle of their class. You didn't hear wrongly. She was the class belle. This was because all the boys in the class combined were not as strong as little Aju. Moreover, she was likable to begin with. Although she liked to sleep in class, she was never noisy. She would only meditate occasionally. She also seriously told the teacher the reason why she had to meditate in class. To put it simply, she was going to be a temple abbot in the future. She had to recite scriptures every day. Otherwise, her Buddha would abandon her. Chapter 1148. In addition, their class belle also liked to eat very much. Whatever was given to her, she would politely say thank you and then recite Amit Ba. She was like a little monk begging for alms. When her soft and fair cheeks puffed up, she was very cute. Let's not talk about how the boys in the class felt about little Aju for the time being. For example, the girls who were protected by her would surround her after class. They were afraid that the little girl would fall when she walked. They also never let little Aju go to the toilet by herself. Someone had to follow her. Everyone in the class knew that little Aju had an older brother. He was not her biological brother. He was indeed a famous figure in the school. In the past, when he was in the primary school, many people already knew about him. Now that he had been promoted to the middle school, his name was not only known by the people in the main school. Even the people from other schools were no stranger to the name Bai Juan. But there was one thing that was very regrettable. That was that Bai Juan had a girlfriend. It was said that he was the one being chased. It happened in the first week of middle school. A girl blocked him in the corridor of the classroom. This girl was no stranger to anyone. Her surname was Enchanting. Her mother was a celebrity and her father was an official. They had a special car to send her to and from school. The little girl was very beautiful. Her lips were red and her teeth were white. She was a little like a girl in a girl group. She was very energetic. The most precious thing was that she was very smart. She knew how to start with the people around Bai Juan. She played very well with Li Hailu and the others. They even played games together. In order to get close to Bai Juan, she seemed to have done everything she could. She had a kind of desperation. No one knew what the truth was. But one thing was that Enchanting released the news that she was Bai Juan's girlfriend. Bai Juan did not come out to object. This was probably the meaning of tacit agreement. Therefore, the next day the middle school department was in an uproar. It was not only the first year. Even some of the second-year seniors wanted to have a good talk with Enchanting. There was probably no one who would not like a boy like Bai Juan. Other than his face that made girls' hearts beat faster when they looked at him, the most important thing was the noble temperament that he brought out. He did not look like a boy of their age at all. Bai Juan was very quiet and his personality was even a little indifferent. But it was precisely because of this that girls were captivated. In addition, when he was treating his younger sister, his eyes were always filled with unrelenting gentleness. Therefore, these young girls who had yet to experience love would think that if they were to become his girlfriend one day, would he also be very gentle? Unfortunately, he was already taken. In addition, Enchanting was the one who was supported by all the girls. Of course, they wouldn't do anything to avoid being implicated. Enchanting seemed to be a nice person. She had a good temper and liked to act coquettishly. He was also pretty. But because there was one time when someone confessed to Baizhuan, she incited the entire class to stop talking to that girl. Gradually, it seemed that fewer and fewer people were sending love letters to Baizhuan. The name Enchanting would often appear together with Baizhuan. Ring ring ring. It was another Friday. When the bell rang, all the students were like grasshoppers in a frying pan. Everyone seemed to be in a hurry to go home. Bang. Enchanting walked over from the next class. With a faint smile, she placed her school bag on the desk of Li Hailu and the others. There's no class tomorrow and the weather is so good today. Do you want to go to Starbucks with us to do homework? Lily and the others are going. You and Baizhuan should come too. How about it? Alright, you can also call our young Master Xiao. It's said that his English is especially good. Is that true? Lindsay has liked to speak English since she was young. Li Hailu's eyes were very bright. Why? The girls in your class want to learn English. Enchanting took the opportunity to sit opposite him and Baizhuan. Didn't you give me a lot of English homework this time? I have no problem. My mother has been teaching me since I was young. The other girls can't keep up. Let's have one-on-one tutoring. How about it? Okay. Please forgive children at this age. They were shy and had the urge to understand female classmates. Li Hailu was a typical example. Where's the Starbucks? It's on the road in front of the school. Let's not go home. We'll eat dinner outside. We're all carrying school bags and wearing school uniforms. It's not worth it to go home and change. As Enchanting said this, she looked at Baizhuan. Master Bai, what do you think? It was unknown when Enchanting started to call Baizhuan Master Bai like Li Hailu and the others. Baizhuan lowered his eyes. His side profile was as white as jade and he had the clear aura of a youth. You guys go. I don't have time. You're going to pick up your sister again? Enchanting asked with a light smile. Why don't you put a Jew down and come out again? We'll wait for you at the Starbucks. No need. You guys can play. Baizhuan slung the black shoulder bag on his left shoulder. His back was straight like a pine tree. The school uniform of the Imperial Capital First High School was originally of better quality than the school uniforms of other high schools. In addition, Baizhuan's temperament was there. His every move made people want to follow his figure. Enchanting sat there and watched his back gradually disappear into the corridor of the classroom. Her fingers on the table were tightly clenched. However, she still had a smile on her face. She pretended to ask Li Hailu casually, I heard that a Jew is very smart and can go home by herself. Why does she always let Baizhuan send her home? She really clings to her brother. When I was young, I also clung to my brother, but it wasn't to this extent. Did something happen in the past? Nothing happened, Li Hailu replied casually. Enchanting narrowed her eyes and her gaze also changed. Her long line of sight had a faint light and no one knew what she was thinking. In the elementary school, a Jew was wiping the blackboard. Because she was too small, she moved a chair over. The little girl stepped on it and exerted force with her hand. The blackboard cracked. The boy next to her looked at her with a tearless face. A Jew Guanyin Bodhisattva class bell, can you sit aside for a while? This is already the fourth blackboard that you have broken. The teacher said that if the blackboard cracks again he will make me wipe the blackboard for a semester. I beg you, let me do it myself. A Jew just wanted to help, but it seemed that the more she helped, the more trouble she got. The child had no choice. She stretched out her little claws and scratched her big head. Then she gave the blackboard to the boy and stood there looking for something else to do. Helpless, everyone was on guard against their class bell coming to cause trouble again. In the end, someone shouted, Baizhuan is here. Only then did a Jew carry her small tortoise-shell school bag and look out of the classroom with bright eyes. Chapter 1149. Baizhuan was wearing his school uniform with one hand in his belt. He just stood in the corridor. The afterglow of the dusk scattered on his face, making people think of the word clean. He looked at little Aju with a smile. In his hand was the snack bean bun that he had bought for the child. The people here stopped what they were doing and looked at young Master Bai. Although Bai Juan came to pick up his sister every day, his handsome face was always not enough. Little Aju originally wanted to rush out, but she still had to clean up, so she gestured to Bai Juan, meaning that he should wait for a while. "Are you on duty today?" Bai Juan asked the third-grade students. "Then I'll wait here. You guys sweep the floor first and let little Aju out later." The boy who was asked immediately shook his head and said, "Senior brother, we don't need little Aju's help. Really. We can completely clean the classroom. Please quickly take the class bell away." The smart Bai Juan immediately understood the meaning behind his words. He smiled at little Aju and said, "I think this side is also clean. Just leave the rest to the students. Auntie Wang made fried meatballs today. She just called me and asked me to bring you back early. Moreover, didn't we agree to buy something for Master today? Didn't we say tomorrow?" Little Aju held the broom and raised her pink and tender little face. She scratched her head in confusion. Bai Juan took the opportunity to walk in and held the child's hand. Then he handed the broom to the little boy beside him and said calmly, "It's today. You remembered wrongly." When little Aju heard this, her little brows furrowed. Bai Juan bent down and hugged the child. He smiled faintly. "Have you ever thought about what to buy for Master?" "Buy yogurt and small cakes." The little one said seriously, "Master loves to eat sweet things. When those kind and charitable benefactors burn incense, he always stealthily eats them." Bai Juan agreed as he emptied a hand and gestured to the person behind him. The third-grade students really admired Bai Juan. With just a few simple words, he had coaxed the little class bell. As expected, people in junior high were different. Everyone had been a child before. When they were children, everyone looked forward to growing up as soon as possible. Therefore, those junior high school students became the people they wanted to be the most. Bai Juan was undoubtedly the best candidate. Little Aju was actually heavier than an ordinary child. However, for Lord Bai, who had been touching guns since he was young, carrying Aju with one hand was not a big deal. Children were easily hungry. The only thing Bai Juan was worried about in class was that the child would not have anything to eat. Fortunately, his Aju was popular and the students in the class would give her snacks to eat. Now little Aju was holding a bean bun in her hand and eating it with her big eyes. She was extremely obedient. The few teachers in the school basically knew that Bai Juan brought the child to school. Even if they doted on him so much, it was inevitable that they would take a few more glances at him. You really can't find any fault with this older brother. Adjutant Zhang was already waiting outside the school in his car. When he saw young Master and Miss coming out, he immediately opened the car door. Bai Juan hugged Aju and said in a good mood, "Uncle Zhang, let's not go home directly today. Let's go to the dessert shop first." Deal. Vice Commander Zhang was sent by Grandpa Bai to protect Bai Juan. He has been following Bai Juan since he was young. He knows that young Master doesn't eat sweet things. He wants to buy this for Mississippi. After little Aju finished eating the bean bun, she licked her little claws. Bai Juan frowned, but his voice was gentle. He pulled the child's hand over. "If you continue to be so unhygienic in the future, Buddha won't love you anymore." Little Aju tilted her head and lowered her eyes to lick again. However, this time she didn't lick her palm but Bai Juan's. Bai Juan really couldn't do anything to her. He hugged the little girl and the smile at the corner of his mouth was so obvious. Adjutant Zhang couldn't help but sigh. It had only been a year. In a year's time, others didn't know, but they knew very well how much the young Master had changed. The two children bought the yogurt cake and went home. Little Aju took the most things and she was still holding Bai Juan's school bag in her hand. However, when she opened the door, the child was stunned. Because a person she had never seen before appeared. "You're Bai Juan's sister, right? You're so cute." The person who spoke was none other than Enchanting. She bent down and pinched little Aju's face with her fingers. Little Aju paused for a moment and turned around to look at Bai Juan behind her. Bai Juan's expression was very indifferent. "Why are you here?" "Oh, I discussed with Li Hailu and felt that Starbucks was too inconvenient. Since you can't go, we might as well come directly to your house." Enchanting smiled and put her hands behind her back. "And I wanted to see little Aju. Now that I've seen her today, she's indeed my type. Why is she so beautiful?" Little Aju didn't understand what was going on, but from the looks of it she should be an acquaintance of Baijuan. Is Baijuan's bag especially heavy? Let me take it. You guys come in quickly, Yanqing said as she took the bag from little Aju's hand. Little Aju was stunned for a moment, then she carried her little turtle shell into the room. There were many people in the living room. 2 of them were Yanqing's friends and the other were Li Hailu and Xiaolin. Xiaolin was indeed like what Li Hailu had said. He never had any expression on his face except when he saw little Aju. In the courtyard, other than Baijuan, Xiaolin and Li Hailu were the best to little Aju. When Xiaolin saw the child come in, a smile appeared on his face. Aju, come here and see what brother Xiaolin bought for you. Little Aju's eyes lit up as she looked at the book in Xiaolin's hand. There's even woolly Buddha printed on it. I brought it back from the temple. Xiaolin smiled and put his arm around the child's shoulder. Look at the Buddhist scriptures on the back and the yellow paper on the front. You can copy the scriptures on it or write a diary. It could be seen that little Aju liked this gift very much. She just stayed by Xiaolin's side and did not come out. From afar it looked like she was being hugged by Xiaolin. Baijuan poured a glass of water. When he walked over, this was the scene he saw. His footsteps paused for a moment before he reached out and hugged the child. Aju, what are you looking at? The Buddhist scriptures that brother Xiaolin gave me. The little girl raised her little hand high as if she was presenting a treasure. Brother, smell it. Does it smell like a temple? Baijuan leaned over and sniffed it. The corners of his mouth curled up. Yes, it does smell like sandalwood. However, Aju, you've forgotten that things like scriptures have to be sincerely requested. If others give it to you, it won't have any effect. Little Aju listened to Baijuan's words and looked at the newly obtained scripture in her hand. Then she glanced in Xiaolin's direction. Even though she was reluctant to part with it, she still stretched out her little hand. Brother Xiaolin is right. This scripture was requested by brother Xiaolin. Chapter 1150. Xiaolin paused and glanced at Baijuan first. Then he reached out and took the scripture book. It's okay. Brother Xiaolin has other gifts here. Hearing this, the child's little claws reached out again. Her beautiful big eyes lit up and she was very cute. What other gifts do you have? Baijuan looked at his empty hand and raised his eyes to meet Xiaolin's gaze. Xiaolin seemed to have discovered something and the smile on his thin lips deepened. That's right. There's a pencil here. It's the core of a lotus seed. Smell it and see if it smells like your favorite lotus seed. Little Aju lay on the ground and sniffed with all her might like a little hamster. In the end, it was Baijuan who picked her up and brought her upstairs with the excuse that she needed to change her clothes after eating. Yanqing's 2 friends ate a piece of fruit before using their left hands to touch little Tyrant, who was still teaching. Let's not be third wheels later, okay? What third wheels? Little Tyrant Li was at a loss. The 2 girls signaled Yanqing with their eyes and then glanced upstairs. Little Tyrant Li instantly understood, but he did not agree. Master Bai doesn't like people to do anything in front of little Aju. Save it. Let's make it clear first. You want to do the question, so I brought you here. Baijuan doesn't like anyone to come to the Bai family. So what? Our goddess Qin is his girlfriend. The 2 girls chuckled and said, he can't be more important than his girlfriend, right? I saw that Baijuan was quite happy to see goddess Qin just now. Bam. Little Tyrant Li put down the pen in his hand heavily. The sound was so loud that it scared the 2 girls. What do you mean by raising a sister? Little Tyrant Li's face darkened and he was actually a little fierce. Watch your words. That's our biological sister. Not to mention the 2 girls, even Yanqing did not expect little Tyrant Li's reaction to be so big. She immediately said to little gangster Li, of course she's my biological sister. I also like little Aju. Didn't we come to the Bai family because we wanted to see little Aju? They said that raising a little sister means adoption. Let's do the questions. When little Aju comes down later, how about we braid her for her? Only then did Li Hailu calm down, but he was not as enthusiastic as before. If this had happened before, he would have been very happy to have so many girls. Just a moment ago he thought that it was his charm that had worked. Now he felt uncomfortable in his heart. He couldn't tell what was wrong, but he concluded that he would never bring a girl to the Bai family again. Xiaolin was the one who sat the calmest. He didn't care about these girls at all. The Xiao family was different from the Li family. They were born to walk the political path. Shaolin was destined to mature faster than many people. At this moment he was thinking about something, and this matter had a very direct relationship with Baijuan. After a while, little Aju changed into her pajamas and walked down. Everyone knew what kind of pajamas little Aju was wearing. It was either a bear, a cat, or a little tiger. Today little Aju was wearing kitten pajamas. Her little tail could melt a person's heart. Auntie Wong was still busy in the kitchen. When she looked up, she saw little Aju staggering towards her. She was holding a yogurt cake in her little hand, which meant that she wanted to give it to Auntie Wong. Auntie Wong opened her mouth and smiled. "It's delicious. I helped Auntie Wong get the bowl." Little Aju liked to stand by the kitchen. Baijuan and Shaolin knew this, so they didn't care. On the other hand, although Yan Qin was sitting in the living room writing questions, she would still look over from time to time. She did not understand why this child was so close to an auntie who was cooking. Thinking of this, Yan Qin stood up and walked to the kitchen. She asked with a smile, "Auntie Wong, is there anything you need our help with?" No, Miss Yan, right? Go and sit down. I'll be done soon." Auntie Wong was busy turning the dishes around. Little Aju stood there and waited. As soon as the plate was full, the child immediately picked it up with both hands and placed the food on the dining table like a small top. Seeing this, Yan Qin turned her eyes and smiled again. "Aju, come, sister will help you." Little Aju looked at her and stopped. Then she shook her head and said very seriously, "I'm going to be an abbot in the future. Wali Buddha said that you have to do your own things." Yan Qin had never seen such a strange child, who would talk about Buddha all day long. Moreover, she always felt that this child was a little too clingy to Baijuan. She was clearly not his biological child. Yan Qin lowered her eyes and a sharp light flashed in her eyes. "Young master." Auntie Wong wiped her hands on her apron. "It's time for dinner. I've cooked a lot of dishes today. In a while, I'll go to the canteen in the courtyard to buy some steamed buns for Mississippi. There's a lot of steamed rice and there are sweet potatoes in it. Miss likes to eat them." Auntie Wong really doted on her little Aju. Baijuan had once accidentally burned the child's mouth when he was feeding her. Now whatever little Aju ate had to go into his mouth first. Now that he heard Auntie Wong's reminder, of course, he immediately nodded. Little Aju had always been obedient. She held her small bowl and sat on the small wooden chair that was exclusive to her. Her lotus root-like calves swayed back and forth. Baijuan looked at her hands. Seeing that they were clean, he did not say anything. He put down the book in his hand and let everyone eat. The Bai family had always been good at treating guests. Their upbringing was very strict. Since they were already here, of course they would make proper arrangements. The table full of dishes were all vegetarian. The presentation of the dishes was very beautiful. The two female students sat down. Both of them were surprised. "The vegetarian dishes are so beautiful. Don't the Bai family eat meat?" Little Aju believes in Buddha. Shaolin's words could be considered an explanation. One of the female students sat opposite him with a red face. The other female student was also observant. She pushed Yan Qin and asked her to go over and sit with Baijuan. However, there was a problem. Little Aju was sitting next to Baijuan. When the female student saw this, she smiled at the little girl. "Little Aju, can you come over and let your sister Yan talk to your brother for a while?" Little Aju's little claws had just touched her small bowl. She thought that she was going to eat. When she heard the female student's words, she raised her little face and was a little dazed. Shaolin looked at the child. Before Baijuan could speak, he smiled and said, "Then let little Aju sit with me." When he said this, he was looking at Baijuan. Baijuan did not look at anyone. He directly picked up the spoon beside little Aju. He first blew on it, then fed the rice in the spoon into little Aju's mouth. His voice was cold. "If you want to eat, sit down. If you don't want to, go out." Chapter 1151. It was just a few words, but the coldness in them made the girls pause for a moment. The atmosphere was inevitably a little solemn. After all, they had never seen Baijuan angry before. Yan Qin also withdrew her hand. She was smart and knew how to resolve the awkwardness. She smiled and said, "This position is pretty good. Wow, this dish tastes so good." Baijuan ignored her. It should be said that in Baijuan's eyes, there was no one else other than Aju. He took out a tissue and wiped the child's mouth. Then he used a spoon to scoop some vegetable soup and sprinkled it into the white rice. He mixed it and fed it to the little girl. Aju opened her small mouth at the right time and narrowed her big eyes. After chewing for a while, her cheeks were bulging. She secretly glanced at Bai Juan again. Bai Juan knew that his attitude was not right. He was worried that he would scare the child, so he lowered his voice. Do you want to eat another cauliflower? Aju nodded her little head. Only then did Bai Juan disperse the chill in his body. He picked up a green cauliflower on the child's plate. Little Aju ate seriously. She bit one end of the cauliflower and chewed it. Bai Juan saw that she was having a hard time eating. He held her small hand with a faint smile and very patiently helped her push the cauliflower away. At that moment, everyone could feel the warmth emitted from Bai Juan's body. Enchanting watched this scene and tightened her grip on her chopsticks. The other two girls also felt that Bai Juan doted on his sister too much. Just because of such a child, he embarrassed them. It was a little too much. Bai Juan, Aju is already 6 years old, right? Enchanting smiled and held her cheek. She's really cute. I've always wanted such a sister. But Aju, you're already so old. It's not good to always let your brother feed you. We girls have to be independent. Hearing this, Aju turned her head and glanced at Enchanting. The little tail behind her swayed. She did not say anything and directly took the small spoon in Bai Juan's hand. She dug the rice for herself bit by bit and ate it with great relish. However, at this moment Bai Juan's deep eyes gradually condensed into a true coldness. Li Hailu always felt that something was wrong, but he could not tell what exactly was wrong. Only Shaolin glanced at Bai Juan's side profile, full of thoughts. When little Aju was eating, her small body was very straight, as if she was born this way. Her etiquette at the dining table was very good. Without Bai Juan feeding her, she ate quickly. In just a few bites she finished a large bowl of rice. After finishing 3 big bowls of rice, she took another bean paste bun in her mouth and was about to wash her small clothes. She did not let Bai Juan carry her anymore. She took her small clothes and small wooden basin. When she ran, her small tail was still wagging. Bai Juan looked at his empty hand and straightened his back as if he was enduring something. But as long as Aju was around, he would not get angry. This was his principle. He knew too well how important a complete family was to a child. He wanted to give little Aju everything he could. First of all, he could not let the child see him angry. Little Aju had always liked to wash clothes. This was probably the child's nature towards water. She wagged her little tail and pressed those little clothes into the small wooden basin one by one, rubbing them with all her might. Bai Juan reached out his hand, but she insisted on doing it herself. Her little face was very serious, as if she was completing a very great thing. On the other hand, the 3 girls laughed at the side. Little Aju, you don't have to be like this in front of your brother, right? You're already obedient enough. You don't even have to do auntie's things. Come here and talk to us. We'll comb your beautiful princess hair. Enchanting wanted to get close to little Aju. After all, a child was definitely very easy to bribe. Unexpectedly, little Aju shook her little head and raised her little face to say, I want to wash clothes. Moreover, monks can't comb their hair. It will break the precepts. The smile on Enchanting's face froze for a moment, then she bent down again. Then let me help you wash your clothes. I'll send them into the washing machine so that your brother doesn't have to think about you all the time. He still has to teach the other sisters English. Is that okay? When little Aju heard this, she raised her little face and looked at Bai Juan. Then she nodded. After saying that, little Aju lowered her little head and folded her little clothes. Then she swayed her little body and walked to the sink. She took out her little toothbrush and began to brush her teeth. Usually Bai Juan was the one who did these things. Now, seeing that the child did not let him help with anything, even Bai Juan's fingers stiffened. Auntie Wang also noticed the strange behavior of the 2 children. She brought the fruit plate over and looked over. Miss, why didn't you let young master wash your face for you? Didn't you just say that you wanted to let young master smell the new handmade soap? I want to wash it myself in the future. Little Aju held her little fingers and counted seriously. And eating and bathing, I want to do it myself. Auntie Wang was stunned for a moment and subconsciously looked at the young master who was standing beside her. Bai Juan felt that his throat was a little sore. He lowered his eyes and looked at the little girl. You've already done everything yourself. What else do you want me to do? Little Aju blinked and did not say anything. She directly opened the door to watch, which meant that she wanted to take a bath. Bai Juan suppressed his anger. He would never get angry at little Aju. Moreover, the child was not wrong at all in this matter. Yan Qin planned to come to the Bai family and get along well with Bai Juan. Who would have thought that the result was not what she wanted at all? In the end, it was still the few of them who gathered in the living room to do homework. After sitting for a while, Yan Qin asked Master Li, who was beside her, "Where's Bai Juan?" Master Li did not say anything. He only wanted to leave now. If it were not for the fact that they were in the same class, he really wanted to kick these people out too. Master Bai's expression was not good. Who knew what would happen later? In any case, he had a bad feeling about this. Could this be the legendary beast-like intuition? Yan Qin saw that Master Li was lowering his head and not saying anything, so she was about to stand up. At this time, Shaolin glanced at her. "I advise you to put away whatever thoughts you have first. Otherwise, things will get too ugly later and you won't be able to get out of the embarrassing situation. After all, you are the legendary girlfriend of Bai Juan, aren't you?" Even if Yan Qin was scheming, she was still a little girl in her first year of junior high school. To be honest, she and Shaolin were not on the same level. She completely could not understand the other meaning of Shaolin's words. However, she still sat down. It was not for anything else, but because she did not know what had happened. She did too much, she would make a mistake. On the other side, little Aju washed herself clean in a short while. Her black hair was messy and her big eyes were very beautiful. She was so exquisite that she looked like a little character in a comic book. The furry pajamas on her body made her look even cuter. Bai Juan picked up the towel beside him and wanted to dry her hair. However, little Aju reached out and stopped him. Chapter 1152. The child was a man of his word. He did his job very neatly. Yan Qin thought that little Aju handed the matter to Bai Juan because she didn't know how to do anything. However, she didn't know that little Aju had grown up in a temple. In the temple, little Aju had always done her own things. She came to the Bai family and asked Bai Juan for help only because Bai Juan liked it. Yan Qin, who thought that she was smart, thought that she had helped Bai Juan teach the right child this time. After a while, Bai Juan should have time to accompany them. It had to be said that Yan Qin's fantasy was good. However, when Bai Juan was about to hold the child and tell her a bedtime story, little Aju seriously requested to sleep in separate beds with Bai Juan. Bai Juan's beautiful eyes completely darkened. Aju wants to sleep by herself? Didn't that sister just say that girls have to be independent? There are so many things for little brother to do. Little brother will be very tired and I will also delay little brother's time. What if I'm not afraid of being delayed by Aju? Aju didn't say anything. She looked at Bai Juan for a while, then shook her head. She pulled the small blanket over her body, which meant that she only wanted to sleep by herself. Bai Juan had never lost his temper with the little girl. Even now, his left hand was already clenched into a fist by himself. He only bent down and kissed little Aju's forehead. Right, since Aju likes it. Aju's ears drooped and her body curled up. The silent rejection made Bai Juan's fingers stiffen. He stood up with him and walked downstairs. There was no joy or anger on his face. However, Auntie Wang, who was familiar with him, clearly realized that the young master was not in a good mood. When the two girls saw him, they still had a smile on their faces. "Bai Juan, you're finally down. Your sister is really clingy to you." Now that Yan Qin said that, she's become much more sensible. Yan Qin also looked at Bai Juan with a slightly red face. "I have a question here that I don't know. Teach me. Anyway, little Aju is also going up." After hearing this sentence, Bai Juan didn't care about the Bai family's hospitality. He looked at them coldly and said in a deep voice, "Who brought these three people in?" These girls had never seen Bai Juan get angry before. In the past, when they saw him in school, he always had an indifferent expression. Otherwise, he would be extremely gentle to the children. No one would have thought that when he was angry he would be even more terrifying than an adult. The young man's face was filled with ice. "I'll ask you one more time. Who brought these three people in?" Li Hailu shrunk his neck and then stood up. "Don't be angry. This matter, take them all away." Bai Juan's voice was very cold, so cold that it made people feel a chill in their hearts. Even those who didn't know what was going on knew that this time he was really angry. How could he not be popular? The child that he raised, in the end, didn't even allow him to touch a finger. Alright, since these people dared to make things difficult for him, he would make them unhappy as well. The girls seemed to be frightened, but they were all pampered and spoiled. Baizhun, aren't you going a little too far? Forget about us. Yanqin is your girlfriend. How can you treat her like this? Baizhun sneered. Girlfriend? It seems that someone needs to explain how this word came about. Yanqin, when you confessed, how did I reject you? Do you need me to repeat it again? The blood on Yanqin's face was drained. She opened her mouth. This matter, I didn't clarify the rumors that you spread outside. I just didn't want to go through so much trouble. Baizhun looked at her with his deep eyes. But who allowed you to come to my house and use those methods of yours? Student Yan, who do you think you are? You bastard. Yanqin was really embarrassed by Baizhun's attitude. She directly ran out of the Bai family's house in tears. The coldness on Baizhun's face had not disappeared. He was not happy that someone came to disturb him and a Jew. The Bai family's upbringing had made him endure it. In the end, these three people actually went overboard and set their sights on little Aju. Did they think that he, Baizhun, was dead? When the other two girls saw that Yanqin had run away, they quickly put away their things. Their thoughts were very chaotic. It turned out that Baizhun had rejected Yanqin. She was not Baizhun's girlfriend. Thinking about it carefully, these two people did not seem to have been alone before. In other words, Yanqin had been spreading rumors. Oh my God, what kind of secret did they know? The two girls looked at each other and hugged their books in shock. The chill on Baizhun's body did not decrease at all because of the three girls' departure. He called the school. This was the first time he used the Bai family's power to ask the principal to change his class. He did not have any requirements for the class as long as it was close to the primary school. As for Yanqin, Baizhun had thousands of ways to let her know what would happen if she had designs on a Jew. Li Hailu felt that his intuition was not wrong at all. Master Bai was really angry. Otherwise, even if it was to maintain his upbringing, he would not have chased people away. Shaolin did not say anything the whole time. He only looked at Baizhun with a deeper meaning in his eyes. Baizhun also glanced at him. Take your pencil too. A Jew doesn't need it. Shaolin immediately smiled. Okay, I'll take it. But Baizhun, let's make it clear. I also like a Jew very much. There are so many people who like her. Baizhun raised his eyebrows and smiled as well. You're just one of them and I'm her guardian. In other words, you better behave yourself, understand? Shaolin looked at the back and shook his head. Well, Baizhun cared more about a Jew than he had imagined. Was it that simple to have a sister complex? Why did he feel that this was not the case? After Baizhun finished dealing with these things, he remembered that his voice might have been a little loud. He glanced at Auntie Wang, who was standing by the stairs, and lowered his voice. What about her? Is she asleep? Auntie Wang looked at the cautious Baizhun and smiled. How can she sleep? She's probably still waiting for young master. After saying that, she subconsciously looked at the young man's expression. Seeing that his lines had softened a little, she continued, Miss has been here for so long. For almost a year, young master has been personally taking care of her. I'm already used to it. As soon as young master left, the child was hugging the small blanket in a daze. She didn't even sleep. She must be reluctant to part with young master. After Baizhun heard this, his eyes finally warmed up. He reached out and pushed the door open. He saw the little girl rolling on the bed, practicing martial arts. Her little tail was swaying on the bed. After seeing Baizhun come in, Aju stopped. Her little face was cute and there was a lock of hair on her head that stood up. Chapter 1153. Have you ever seen a little tiger fall? Little Aju looked like that now. Baizhun looked at her little face, and the anger in his heart finally subsided. He knew that the child had eaten very little just now, so he specially brought her a yogurt cake. He didn't care how Auntie Wang usually nagged him, saying that he couldn't spoil the child too much, especially not letting her eat at night. Otherwise her teeth would hurt. Baizhun also knew his limits. She should be fine after eating a little. Little Aju stared at the cake and her eyes lit up. Baizhun smiled faintly and reached out to straighten the child. Do you want to eat? Little Aju pricked up her little ears and nodded her head vigorously. Baizhun had always been patient with children. He held a spoon and dug for her. Little Aju ate very happily. She lowered her long eyelashes and ate one piece. When it was not enough, she ate another piece. She ate until her little belly was full. Only then did she burp and lean on Baijun's body. Aju, I promise you that in the future no one will disturb us in this house. Baijun wiped the child's mouth. So there are some things that you don't have to do yourself, understand? Little Aju tilted her big head. If that's the case, won't it take up little brother's time? Little brother's time is used to be taken up by you. Baijun also got on the bed and let the little girl lie on his body. Didn't we agree that we are a family? Of course, a family has to take up each other's time. Little Aju felt that Baijun was right, but there was one thing. What if little brother has a girlfriend? I won't have a girlfriend. Baijun's voice was very indifferent. Didn't you also say that the women at the foot of the mountain are tigers? Little Aju felt that something was not right. That's not the logic. Master Li said that everyone has to have a girlfriend. I'm a monk, so I stay away from girls. Little brother is not a monk. I'm your senior brother. Have you forgotten? Master Bai automatically turned on his coaxing mode. I'm also a monk, at least half of one. When little Aju heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up and her little face was very serious. Then little brother, be careful in the future. You can't get close to girls again. Wali Buddha said that appearance is emptiness and emptiness is appearance. You can't break the precept, understand? I see that little brother's performance is not very good recently. I will look after little brother on behalf of Buddha. Baijun listened to the child's words and nodded to himself. He couldn't help but laugh. Yes. Then let's sleep. Little Aju crawled in Baijun's arms and handed the Little Prince illustration book on the bedside table to Baijun. She meant that she wanted Baijun to tell her a bedtime story. Baijun smiled faintly and opened the illustration book. The youth's voice was crisp and pleasant. Little Aju just leaned in his arms and listened seriously. After listening for a while, her eyes began to get heavy and her little head was nodding. Baijun pushed away the black hair on Aju's head and closed his eyes as well. The two children were finally reconciled. Auntie Wang felt gratified as she watched. If little Aju insisted on doing her own thing, no one knew what would happen to the young master. In the morning, little Aju was holding a piece of toast in her mouth as usual. Her small hands were holding Baijun's school bag and her eyes were big. She liked to take Baijun's school bag. Baijun squatted down and tied the child's shoelaces with his slender and fair fingers. The sun shone down on the two of them, pulling their shadows very long. As the class belle of the 3rd grade, little Aju was never late for school. It was just that she loved to sleep in class and was more violent. This should be something that everyone knew. To put it simply, those who could make a move would never make a fuss. After the girl heard this, she glanced at little Aju. She's not a retard. Why can't she understand what we're saying? Aju, we're here to ask for your help. You should also say something. With a brother like Baijun, you shouldn't be too stupid. Even if you're adopted, you should at least have some intelligence. Little Aju still did not say anything, but the small melon seed in her hand was put aside by her. Chapter 1154. Enchanting seemed to be very wronged. Forget it, she is indeed a little too young. Even if she made a mistake, maybe she doesn't even know what the mistake was. Baijun dotes on his sister. I'll wait for 2 more days. As she said this, Enchanting lowered her eyes and said to the little girl, Little Aju, Sister Enchanting doesn't mean to blame you. I'm here to ask for your help. If you want to help me, just nod, okay? Even if she was not familiar with Baijun, she would still have an explanation. She would say that they broke up because he doted on his sister too much. However, there was one thing that Enchanting did not expect. Little Aju actually looked at her and said clearly, Benefactress, you are not Baijun's girlfriend. Baijun said that day that you always lie like this. Once or twice is fine, but if you say too much, it will make people very angry. Enchanting's expression changed when she heard this. She looked at Aju with a fierce gaze. Why are you so insensible? Enchanting sneered, I am indeed very angry that you are clinging to your brother, but I have endured all of this. We had a disagreement because of you and my first reaction was to come and apologize to you. I really underestimated you. How could a child like you have so many thoughts? You even said that I was lying. That's enough. When the 2 girls who followed her heard Enchanting's words, their anger also rose. They did not know if it was because they had watched too many TV dramas or something else. They thought that they were good at sex, but in fact every time they did something they were bullying others. Moreover, birds of a feather flock together in this world. A group of girls who competed every day about the brand of their clothes and the kind of car their family drove naturally did not feel that there was anything wrong with them making things difficult for a child. If you weren't Baizhuan's sister, I would really want to teach you a lesson. The person who said this was a very tall girl standing behind Yanqing. She was quite beautiful, but she looked like she was not to be trifled with. When the girls in the class saw this scene, they secretly glanced at the boys behind them. After the boys received the order, they immediately slipped away from the back door. There was still some time before class. The two junior high school students stood at the door and did not leave. They looked at Aju with heavy eyes. Yanqing's eyes were red the whole time as if she was not responsible for these things. He was completely wronged. I say, little brat, are you really not going to say a single word? The girls sneered. We're afraid of Baizhuan, not you. Look, when your brother is gone, how are we going to deal with you? I hate you brats the most. The two of them were originally fine, but they were messed up by you. Do you know how much Yanqing likes Baizhuan? You don't even know how to make a sound. Is there really something wrong with your brain? I also think there's something wrong with her brain. Didn't you hear what she said just now? She actually called us benefactors. Another girl laughed with disdain. What's wrong with him? Could it be that the Bai family brought in a little retard? Little Aju really didn't like to talk nonsense with others. The child had not made a move because he was worried about damaging the office supplies in the classroom. But the other party kept on talking, making her really angry. Wuli Buddha had said that when one couldn't bear it anymore, there was no need to bear it anymore. Little Aju did not stop either. As soon as the two of them finished speaking, she made a move. Her small fist carried the wind and directly hit a female student in the stomach. When the other tall girl saw this, she immediately shouted, "You damn child, I didn't hit you, but you still want to take a mile when I give you an inch." As she shouted like this, she was about to pick up little Aju. On the other side, Baizhuan, who had just changed classes, was being followed by Li Hailu. Little gangster Li was still apologizing very sincerely. This is my fault. I shouldn't have taken them to the Bai family. I really didn't think so much at that time. I just saw that Yanqing usually played with us in the game. Her skills were not bad and she didn't directly attract you like other girls. I thought she was harmless, but I didn't expect her to have so many thoughts. This time it's my fault for wanting to chase after a girl. I apologize. Don't change your class. If you change your class, whose homework should I copy? I changed classes because I wanted to be closer to little Aju. Baizhuan turned around and looked at him slowly. As for the homework, you can think of a way yourself. Li Hailu grabbed Baizhuan's hand. Brother, this matter is easy to discuss. It's just that little Aju wasn't angry with me last time, right? Even if she was angry with me. What does it have to do with you? Baizhuan's voice was very indifferent. Li Hailu completely understood Master Bai's possessiveness. Yes. You are little Aju's brother. I was picked up. I was just afraid that the child would be affected. If little Aju was a little sad, Li Hailu would be the first to make them unhappy. Damn it, you want to use me as a gun? Alright, Aju and I are fine. Baizhuan put down his school bag. You should be more careful in the future. After all, we came from the courtyard. Some people and some things should be considered by themselves. Although Li Hailu was not as smart as Shaolin, he still had a beast-like intuition. He knew very well what Baizhuan was referring to. In their circle, the people they nurtured were either flashy or low-key. Especially for those who took the initiative to befriend them, they had to understand the other party's character. That way they wouldn't be taken advantage of. There were too many temptations around them, so they were destined to know more than those who came from ordinary families. He had seen some brothers in high school who had already started to go to nightclubs. Last time, someone who wanted to ask his family for help had actually given him that kind of card. Did he, Li Hailu, look like a person who would forget his friends when he saw women? He would not be like that. Why don't I change classes too? I think there are fewer girls in this class. It's quiet. Li Hailu seemed to have suddenly grown up. He turned his head and said to Baizhuan. Baizhuan was about to speak when he saw two third-grade primary school students running over with sweat all over their faces. Even their breathing was heavy. Brother Bai, we finally found you. Baizhuan recognized that these two boys were Aju's classmates. He immediately frowned. What's wrong? 3 girls from your junior high school came and surrounded little Aju. One of the girls seems to be your girlfriend, Brother Bai. They insisted that little Aju come over to find Brother Bai and speak up for that person. Little Aju didn't agree, so before the little boy could finish speaking, Li Hailu heard a loud bang in his ear. The stool in front of him was kicked out by someone. Hearing this, the third-year students all trembled. Little class bell can't be serious, right? When has little class bell ever been fake? Only now do I realize how gentle little class bell was to me in the past. Is it really possible to break someone's legs? What's impossible about little class bell? She's only 6 years old. This has nothing to do with age. Do you remember the last time you provoked her and she pushed you away with one hand? Don't mention that dark history. You won't be able to find a girl. The child acted as if she did not hear the discussions around her. After she finished speaking, she continued to drag the two people out. There was a little white cat on her head and the cat's tail wagged behind her head. Little class bell, where are you dragging them? Someone asked in a hurry. The main reason was that one of them had a broken arm. Being dragged like this was really a fate worse than death. The child said without turning her head. Downstairs in the garbage dump. The third years were speechless. When Bai Juan ran over, little Aju had not yet reached the stairs. The child was standing in the corridor and dragging people. Bai Juan knew that little Aju had always liked to drag people who had been beaten up. However, he did not care about these things anymore. As soon as he reached the place, he picked up the child. He held her small face with his fingers and looked left and right. There was a red mark that was neither deep nor shallow on her chin. If one did not pay attention, one would not be able to see it at all. Master Bai was immediately furious. He immediately pulled the tall girl up from the ground. You did it. That handsome face emitted a chilling aura. The tall girl could not help but shiver. She had never seen Bai Juan angry before. After all, she had a good upbringing. But now she really regretted coming here. Zhang Mina, I don't hit women, but you remember this. Don't you like to bully people in groups? I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to be bullied. At that time, the tall girl did not understand the meaning of Bai Juan's words. After she recuperated and entered the sports field again, the few people on the same team would always intentionally or unintentionally hit her with a basketball. Once she resisted, they would all surround her. This was called bullying. Bai Juan had stayed in the temple for a year, but he had not really gotten into any relationships. When he did things, there was only one word to describe it, and that was ruthless. Li Hailu was most afraid of this. He hurriedly rushed over and saw Bai Juan reach out and throw Zhang Mina aside. Then he approached Yanqin. Yanqin was still crying and said, Bai Juan, why are you like this? Why are you so fierce to us without asking clearly? Bai Juan sneered. Ask clearly? I really don't know what happened. I only know that my sister is in class. You came to find trouble with me. What else do I need to ask? Master Bai, the teacher is here. Li Hailu whispered behind his ear. Bai Juan's face was expressionless. Yanqin and Zhang Mina also saw the teacher's figure in the distance. One after another they started to cry. They really looked like they had suffered a great grievance. Why did she have to look for little brother? Little Aju frowned and repeated seriously, I beat her up. It has nothing to do with little brother. Aju. Then he slowly stood up and looked at Zhang Mina's mother. The aura he exuded did not match his age at all. Madam, since you don't care about the process, then wait for the lawyer's letter on behalf of your daughter. Your daughter colluded with her classmates to blackmail and kidnap my sister. This is campus violence and it is also a crime. You seem to be very surprised. It's useless for you to look at our director. Zhang Mina's mother did not expect that a young man would suddenly come up and talk about the law with her. She was completely dumbfounded. Not to mention that Zhang Mina's mother was a little overwhelmed. Even the director of the teaching office and Li Hailu were surprised by Bai Juan's words. Especially Li Hailu, he looked at his master Bai in shock. Why didn't he know that Bai Juan had this idea? No wonder he was so obedient just now and came with the teachers. Even the Bai family's power was useless. To be able to come up with such an excuse, their master Bai was really cool. What, blackmail and kidnapping? The female student who had been crying beside him was stunned. We didn't. We just wanted to warn your sister to stay away from you. When Baizhuan heard this, his smile became even colder. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to tell my sister to stay away from me? When the director of the teaching office heard the female student's words, he also felt that it was funny. This child's thoughts were really strange. What kind of logic was this? No wonder Baizhuan was angry. However, the female student did not think that she was wrong and looked at Yan Qin. Yan Qin signaled her not to say anything else. However, there were adults present. The eye contact between these junior high school students could not escape the eyes of others at all. Baizhuan's voice was still very calm. Now the problem is very clear. They are the ones who are looking for trouble. What do you mean by looking for trouble? A crisp voice rang out from the door. It was filled with arrogance and coldness. Little friend, don't you think you're exaggerating a little too much? Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a woman standing in the backlight. She was wearing an open-necked white suit and a pair of oversized sunglasses. There were two people standing on her left and right. They looked like her assistants. Their auras were very strong. The person who came was Yan Qin's mother. Her name was Ruan Xin, and she was a relatively famous female celebrity in the industry. Because she had acted in a few television dramas, she did have some fans. The director of the teaching office had a headache because of this point. Yan Qin's mother's identity was there. If this matter was not handled well, Ruan Xin's Weibo post would be unimaginable what kind of impact it would have. This was because the influence of celebrities was too strong. Even if the other party was in the wrong, no one could predict what the public opinion would become in the end. Forced to think, the director of the teaching office smiled and went up to her. Ms. Ruan, please take a seat first. Let's hear what's going on before we deal with it. Chapter 1157. I know my daughter's personality the best. Ruan Xin took off her glasses and blew on them. She also smiled and said, she's not a child who takes the initiative to cause trouble. Someone must have lied. Yan Qin was beaten up and this matter won't be over. Please investigate carefully and give me an explanation. I'm really busy here. I still have a scene to shoot in a while, so I'll take Yan Qin away first. The head teacher of the third grade heard this sentence as soon as she arrived. She was so angry that she couldn't help but say, Ms. Ruan, are you saying that all the students in my class are lying? Little Aju is the youngest student in our class. Ms. Ruan, as you can see, she is only 6 years old. A 6-year-old child, if no one provoked her, she would only obediently stay in the classroom. Your daughter brought 2 senior students to our third grade, which is not in accordance with the school rules. Teacher, your student hit someone. You're also responsible for it. Ruan Xin's expression turned cold. You are the head teacher who can't control your own class. Shouldn't you first reflect on yourself before speaking? The head teacher had never seen such a person who could distort the truth like this. She was so angry that her fingers were clenched tightly. Ruan Xin turned her head and glanced at little Aju. Besides, just because she's young doesn't mean that she's a good person. Who raised such a child with such a bad upbringing? Hearing this woman mention Aju, Master Li was unhappy. His eyes were burning with anger. Ruan Xin looked extremely elegant. She wanted to leave with Yan Qin. Baizhuan blocked her way. The corners of his mouth curled up and he was extremely cold. Since Ms. Ruan wants to talk about education, then I will have a good chat with Ms. Ruan. I have nothing to do with your daughter and I have never admitted that she is my girlfriend. Anyone with a little face would not spread such rumors in school. Not only did they say that I have a close relationship with her, but they even found my sister and warned her to stay away from me. So this is how a popular actress teaches her daughter. It can be considered an eye-opener for me. However, there is one thing that Ms. Ruan and I have the same idea. This matter will not be over. Yan Qin saw that Baizhuan had changed, so she quickly pulled Baizhuan's hand. Baizhuan, that's not what my mother meant. Besides, your sister is too clingy to you, that's why I, swish. Baizhuan shook off her hand. There was only a thick chill on his thin lips. Now that he had explained the situation, everyone present knew what had happened. Ruan Xin was completely embarrassed. She had never thought that her daughter would be the one to throw herself at him. She could feel the gazes around her. For a celebrity, she simply couldn't stand ordinary people looking at her as if she was a joke. Ruan Xin really couldn't control her temper anymore. She said to the assistant beside her, "What are you waiting for? Bring Yan Qin along." Let's go. When the two assistants heard the whole story, they were indeed stunned. When they came to their senses, they immediately took Yanqin away. Wan Xen, on the other hand, turned around and glanced at Bai Juan. There was a subtle warning in her words. Little friend, there are some things that you can't say carelessly. No matter what, you're the ones who beat people up. This can't be changed. If you want to file a lawsuit, you can directly send a lawyer's letter to the Yen family and see what the court will decide. After saying this, Wan Xen flipped her long hair and left. Master Li was so angry that he laughed. Isn't she just saying that because she thinks that Yen is in the judicial department? Master Bai, this female celebrity really doesn't know you. It's good that her husband knows me. Bai Juan was not in a hurry. He reached out and picked up the child with the small melon seeds in her mouth. He said to the two directors, "Thank you for defending a Jew just now." The director of the teaching office did not know what to say. He was only worried that the matter would continue to cause trouble. However, Master Li knew that if Bai Juan said that it would not end, then it would really not end. In addition to that female celebrity's attitude, this matter would probably be troublesome. Most importantly, there was a scar on a Jew's face. This was probably what Bai Juan could not tolerate the most. For the afternoon class, Yanqin's mother asked the assistant to apply for leave for her daughter. When Wan Xen came to school, she could indeed meet many people who knew her. The main reason was that she was currently participating in a variety show outside the house. That show was very popular in the country and was also very popular. Therefore, there were naturally more people who were fans of her. She maintained the elegance and glamour of a celebrity. When she saw anyone, she would not smile and wave her hand. It was not until she got into the nanny van that Wan Xen took off the sunglasses on her face. Her face was full of anger. Yanqin was still crying in the car. Her shoulders were twitching. It was not easy for Wan Xen to get pregnant. She simply gave her daughter whatever she wanted. Now that she saw Yanqin like this, the anger in her heart could not be suppressed anymore. She tilted her head and said to the two assistants, "Go and ask who the boy who dared to talk to me like that in the office just now is. Ask the lawyer to make a lawyer's letter and send it directly to his house. My daughter is not someone they can bully just because they want to." When Yanqin heard that her mother was going to fall out with Bai Juan, she was the first to object. "Mom, why do you want a lawyer's letter? Bai Juan is not wrong. The one who is wrong is that sister of his. She is not his biological child to begin with, but she insisted on sticking to Bai Juan. Bai Juan played well with me before and it was all because of her." The assistant listened silently at the side and did not say anything. The little boy in the office had already made it very clear. His attitude towards Yanqin was also full of disgust. How could he play well with Yanqin? They were indeed used to seeing celebrities in this circle who inverted black and white, but this was the first time they had seen someone who liked to make up groundless things at such a young age. No wonder that good-looking boy hated this little miss so much. The two assistants looked at each other and did not say anything. After all, although Wan Xen always looked like a caring and generous person in front of outsiders in private, she was very harsh when she treated her assistants. It was just like how she always liked to eat vegetarian and pray to Buddha, but her heart was not kind. "Mommy won't touch that boy." Wan Xen coaxed her daughter. "It's true that he wasn't the one who hit her. No matter how young his sister is, it's her fault that she beat her up so badly." When Yanqin heard her mother's words, she still couldn't stop crying. "I don't want to see her in school again. Tell her to get lost. Don't cry. You're crying so much that mommy's heart hurts." Wan Xen reached out and carried Yanqin in. She patted her back. "Mommy will definitely settle this matter for you." Yanqin lay in her mother's arms and felt very wronged. "I want Bai Juan to be my boyfriend. Mom, I've already said it. Now that things have turned out like this, how can I still go to school? Everyone will definitely think that I'm bragging. Tell Bai Juan for me that I don't have to make him apologize. As long as he's with me, we won't make things difficult for his sister. We'll let his sister stay in school." Chapter 1158. Wan Xion's two assistants were sitting in the driver's seat and the other in the passenger's seat. When they heard these words, they couldn't help but shake their heads. This idea was really strange. However, Wan Xen felt that her daughter's request was not too much. The other party was wrong to begin with. If her daughter didn't like him, then no matter how outstanding his appearance was, he wouldn't be worthy of her daughter. Little Qin, I won't care what you want to do. However, you're too young now. You have to be careful when you're in a relationship. Don't let others catch you. Wan Exin smiled faintly and pinched her nose. I'm a celebrity. You don't know why some people are so nice to you. However, those children in number 1 high school should be from good families. It's mainly because of your father. Our Yen family is not something that anyone can climb up just because they want to. Yen Qin wiped her tears. I know. The Bai family is also very rich. Just look at Bai Juan and you'll know. He's different from all the boys in our class. The teachers all like him very much. Wan Exin smiled and said, Okay, I'll listen to little Qin. I'll get someone to do it immediately. Wan Exin thought that no matter how rich the Bai family was, they could not compare to the Yen family's connections. There was no need for her to tell her husband such a small matter. She got the Bai family's contact information from the school and directly called them. The person who answered the phone was none other than Chief Bai. Originally, he was not supposed to answer this call. Under normal circumstances, Auntie Wang was there. However, today, Chief Bai suddenly received a notice from the school saying that Bai Juan had gotten into a fight in the school, so he returned to the courtyard. When the school director talked about this matter, his attitude had always been very low. The Bai family had always kept a low profile, and Bai Juan did not clearly state his identity when he entered the school. However, since it was arranged by the Shao family, the school director immediately thought that the other party's background was not simple. Looking at the usual interaction between the young master of the Shao family and Bai Juan, he was even more certain of this point. She originally thought that the other party was a second-generation official. When Chief Bai received the call, she finally figured it out. It turned out that Bai Juan had a red background. Wan Exin did not know about this at all. The moment she came up, she was very rude to the old man. After telling him the request, she even asked the old man to consider it carefully. She said that it was just a quarrel between children. As a parent, he had to be reasonable and not make things too serious. Old Master Bai had been in power for so long, but he had never heard such a funny joke. Then tell me, what are your conditions? After saying this, Elder Bai pressed the speaker button. Bai Juan was sitting opposite Old Master Bai and was playing chess with him. Hearing the arrogant tone on the other side, the youth's eyes turned cold. He directly turned on his phone and recorded the other party's words without missing a word. Then he handed it to Adjutant Zhang. Send this recording to Yan Jinghua. Tell him that my grandfather wants to ask him what the Bai family did wrong to be threatened by the Yan family. At the same time, tell him that the Bai family has always strictly prohibited marriage and girlfriends. Some third-rate actresses who rely on sleeping with others want to enter the Bai family. Not to mention my grandfather, he can't even get past me. Also, remember to ask Yan Jinghua if he's in charge of the judiciary. Where did he put my Uncle Tang? Adjutant Zhang looked at the phone in his palm and felt that his young master's actions were so cool that he had no friends. Old Chief Bai laughed heartily. Just do as my grandson says. Go ahead. Yes. Adjutant Zhang saluted. Chief Bai saw that Bai Juan's face was still cold, so he asked tentatively, the news I received was that a Jew beat someone up. Shouldn't be beaten up? Bai Juan's eyes were cold. It's only right to beat them up. Chief Bai put down the teacup. Bai Juan, grandfather has said before that your temper is not good. You are too protective of the child. Bai Juan paused and said indifferently, my temper is indeed not good, but grandfather, there's one thing you're wrong about. Of course, I have to protect my child. Chief Bai smiled. It's good to have someone who can protect you. It seems that you've already walked out of that plane crash. Bai Juan did not say anything. Chief Bai stood up and reached out to touch Bai Juan's head. When he thought of his proudest son, his eyes were a little red. What happened back then was not your fault. Everyone has their own fate. Your father definitely doesn't want to see you like before. Now that little Aju is with you, grandfather can be at ease when I'm guarding outside. Thank you, grandfather. Bai Juan lowered his eyes. I know what to do as a member of the Bai family. What you're worried about won't happen. I will protect the Bai family well and won't let my temper destroy it. Chief Bai was really gratified. He nodded. Just as he turned around, he saw a little girl in pajamas holding a round watermelon and looking at them at the door. Chief Bai smiled. Our little Aju is really getting cuter and cuter. Where did you get these pajamas? Little brother bought it for me. Little Aju ran over and hugged the big watermelon. Grandfather, eat the watermelon. I secretly hid this in the closet in my room. Auntie Wang didn't even know. Old Chief Bai laughed and pointed at her. You little foodie. However, the Bai family did love to eat watermelon. Old Master Bai was even more so. When they were young, they could laugh for several days after eating a mouthful of watermelon. This was perhaps the habit of several generations of soldiers. No matter how rich they were still most reluctant to part with the bitter days back then. The Bai family's upbringing had always been simple and generous. Therefore, the children they raised were not like other children at all. Even though they were elegant, their lives were very simple. The three of them cut an iced watermelon and ate it around the table. It was a very happy thing. The joy of a family was just that. Little Aju still had a cat on her head. After handing the watermelon to Chief Bai, she handed her own piece to Bai Juan, meaning that she wanted Bai Juan to feed her. Bai Juan held it for her with a faint smile. After talking to Chief Bai for a while, he fed Little Aju a bite. Little Aju's eating made people have an appetite. Her cheeks were puffed up and her eyes were big. Chief Bai looked at this scene thoughtfully. Although the Bai family's upbringing was to dote on the children, wasn't his grandsons doting too much? Bai Juan noticed Chief Bai's gaze and raised his eyebrows. Grandfather, what's wrong? Continue eating the watermelon. The children were still young. He must be thinking too much. Anyway, his mission for this period of time had ended. He should not be transferred out again this month, so he could observe more closely. Chapter 1159. After Old Master Bai made up his mind, he began to call his old friends in the courtyard. He needed help to keep an eye on things with him. Moreover, he and Old Man Shao had yet to decide the winner. The Shao family did not have a granddaughter, but they had 3 brats. When the time came, Old Man Shao would prick him again and he would carry Aju out. That's right, Old Master Bai was a fanatic who showed off his granddaughter. When the Li and Shao families received Old Master Bai's call, they rushed over. Who asked Old Master Bai to say that there was something fun to watch. They brought their grandsons along as well. After all, they were all playing together. When Master Li heard that his grandfather was going to bring him to the Bai family, he was punished by his father to stand, but he instantly perked up. He put away his toy pistol and carried his school bag. He threw a sentence to his father saying that he was not coming back to sleep and left. Master Li's father was so angry that he chased him all the way. His father's only wish now was not world peace, but to stuff Master Li into his mother's stomach and let him be reborn. When the 3 old men met, they would either discuss serious matters or compete with each other. Others were competing to see who was more powerful, but these 3 were basically competing to see who could give birth to more children. In the past, Old Master Bai was always lagging behind by a lot. Now that Old Master Bai had a granddaughter, he was the absolute winner. The Shao and Li families were looking forward to having a granddaughter, but it was also strange. They gave birth to a brat and every one of them had a penis. They had always believed in one sentence, which was that boys had to be raised crudely. Therefore it was not easy for Bai Juan to grow up to be so polite. Shaolin had his mother to hold him back so he was not too rough. The roughest one was Master Li. When they saw Bai Juan, the children ran upstairs for a while, allowing the 3 grandfathers to pinch them. As soon as they entered the room, Master Li asked, "How's the Yen family? What's with Grandpa Bai's attitude? Do you think it's not good to touch them now?" Shaolin was not there at that time, but he heard about the situation. Is there something wrong with Yanqing's brain? There's no one else who can be so infatuated. She just feels that little Aju is always following Master Bai, so she feels unbalanced. If the Yen family is gone, she should be balanced. Bai Juan put down the English book in his hand and threw the phone in his hand to his 2 friends. What is this? Recording? Shaolin tilted his head to open the thing and heard the threat from the Yen family. Little gangster Li had an expression of disbelief on his face. Grandpa Bai answered the phone? Yes. The corners of Bai Juan's mouth curled up. I asked Vice Commander Zhang to send the same recording directly to the Yen family. Didn't the other party want to compete with their background? Then I'll compete with him. Brilliant, this move of yours is really brilliant. After what Master Bai did the Yen family still have a way out? Not to mention the Tang family, even the judicial department would want to talk to Miss Yen after hearing this recording. Wasn't it obvious that he wanted to use his status to suppress others? If Mr. Yen heard this recording, he would definitely regret marrying such an unlucky wife. Li Hailu originally thought that Bai Juan's personality had become gentler in the past year. He did not expect that Bai Juan was even more ruthless than before. Moreover, this time he was not as ruthless as he was back then. Not only could he directly take a person's life, but he could also not cause the slightest bit of trouble. Shaolin listened from the side and smiled. If it were him, he would not have thought that Bai Juan would be so thorough. However, Shaolin was most concerned about the child. Is Aju okay? She's fine. Aju had been listening to the few people behind the door. Now that she heard her name, she jumped out. Her lotus root-like little hands patted her small belly. It was probably because she had eaten too much watermelon. Her small belly was bulging, but her face was as serious as ever. Brother Shaolin, don't worry. They can't beat me. Shaolin was indeed relieved about this because even Shaolin himself might not be able to beat Aju. Brother Shaolin brought you a little bean. It was freshly steamed by our auntie. Aju's eyes lit up when she heard about food. However, Bai Juan blocked Shaolin's hand. She just finished eating watermelon and her stomach is still full. If she eats more, she won't be able to digest it at night. As he said that, he turned the lunchbox in Shaolin's hand and pressed it into little gangster Li's palm. Me? Li Hailu really wanted to say that he had just had dinner too, okay? Besides, everyone in the villa knew about Aju's appetite. Even if you fed her 2 big steamed buns now, she wouldn't have indigestion, let alone 2 little ones. Li Hailu said. Bai Juan only had one word. Little gangster Li no longer had any doubts. He put a bean in his mouth. Damn it, he hated to eat things with bean paste filling the most. Bai Juan, you're good. Shaolin raised his head and glanced at the happy little gangster Li. He simply said, Bai Juan, I found that you won't let me give Aju anything I've given her recently. Bai Juan did not deny it. He handed him a ballpoint pen made of bamboo in his hand. Your intuition is very right, so don't give it to me anymore. Grandpa brought it back from Yunnan. It's suitable for you to use. Shaolin accepted it and could not put it down. Not bad. I knew you liked it. Bai Juan raised his chin. The youth's smile was very beautiful. Little gangster Li was jealous. Why don't I have a share? What do you need a pen for? Bai Juan said as he opened his notebook. Some time ago, didn't you always want equipment in the game? I made a set for you. Little gangster Li was so moved that he cried. He hugged Bai Juan and called him his brother. Little Aju pushed him to the side forcefully. Beat the mud away. Little brother will feel hot. Little gangster Li really did not want to admit that his martial strength was not as good as a 6-year-old child's. He could only swallow the last bean with tears in his eyes. Shaolin held a pen in his hand and watched this scene with a smile. The Shao family's situation was very complicated. The people they met were also some social events. Ever since Shaolin could remember, his grandfather had told him that no matter what, the Shao, Li and Bai families had to be tightly tied together. At that time, he did not understand the meaning of this sentence. His thoughts were more gloomy than the average person's. To be honest, he liked to think of many things in a bad way. To put it nicely, this was called preparing for a rainy day and being good at scheming. To put it bluntly, he was only a junior high school student now. With such a sinister personality, it was very difficult to make friends. His mother was an educator. No matter how magnanimous she would still teach him how to deal with people. For some things, once they were exchanged for equivalent value, they would appear to be fake. When he was 3 years old, he moved back from Hainan with his grandfather and moved into the courtyard. Originally, according to his understanding of the future, he would definitely look at the other party's identity when he made friends. He did not need the other party's help, but he had to be wary of others. However, when he met Bai Juan and Hailu, everything changed. Chapter 1160. The 3 of them grew up together. From the time they were wearing diapers, they would fight over a toy. However, if the children in the other courtyards dared to bully him, Bai Juan and Hailu would be the first to object. Shaolin still remembered that year when Hailu fell into the water. At that time, he was so scared that his hands and feet were numb. The children around him had all run away, but Bai Juan refused to leave. No matter what, he had to save Hailu. In the end, he had a fever for 2 whole days. The The first thing Bai Jun did when he opened his eyes was to make sure that he and Hailu were fine. At that moment Xiao Lin recognized that these two people were his brothers for life. Moreover, the feeling of being remembered like this was always good. Xiao Lin lowered his eyes and turned the bamboo pen in his hand. He could not hide his happiness. The three old men watched from the outside, full of joy and relief. What could make them happier than the harmony between their children and grandchildren? In the future the children still had a long way to go. Only by helping each other like this could they be at ease. Among them only old Master Li was the most careless. Compared to the other two, not only was his son not long, but he was also confused the entire time. When the time came, how could he be at ease leaving his grandson in the army? Old Master Li gritted his teeth and turned his head to ask, "Old Bai, when do you plan to send your son away?" "Let's talk about it after he graduates from high school." Old Master Bai lowered his voice and gestured for them to go downstairs. Little Aju is still young. If Bai Jun leaves, who will take care of her? Although it's a little late to join the army at the age of 18, Bai Jun should be able to keep up. Old Master Li nodded. That's fine too. The main thing is to arrange for Bai Jun while we old bones are still in position. Don't worry, the two of you. Can't you see that little Jun is a child? He has the ability to lead. Old Master Xiao stroked his beard and said, "These three children are all sensible. Although Hailu is a little mischievous, he knows that our Xiao Lin is also a taciturn person. Sometimes I don't even know what my grandson is thinking. Let's wait and see what they want to do and what they are doing." Vice Commander Zhang stood at the side and listened to the conversation between the three big shots. If anyone else heard this, they would definitely be very shocked. Because it was very obvious that this was nothing more than the intention of appointing a successor. There was only one young master in the Bai family. However, the Xiao family was different from the Li family. They had 3 sons, not to mention their future grandsons. However, the 2 of them had already decided on their successors. In other words, the 3 children upstairs would all be extraordinary in the future. Deputy Zhang raised his head and glanced upstairs. He tried his best to calm himself down. However, Wan Xian and her daughter were still waiting for Bai Jun to give in. Wan Xian first took Yan Qin shopping, then took her to the recording studio. She did whatever she wanted. She was confident that when she returned home, she would receive an apology letter from the Bai family. Wan Xian's husband Yan Jinghua was still busy at work. He didn't expect to see someone from the Bai family. Just as he was about to greet him, the other party raised his hand to stop him. He was dressed in a military uniform. "Director Yan, our old master wants you to listen to this." As he spoke, the man clicked on the recording on his phone. The more Yan Jinghua listened, the paler his face became. In the end, there was no trace of blood on his lips. He hurriedly said, "Deputy, is there a misunderstanding?" The call was personally picked up by Chief Bai. The recording is also very clear. The girl that the noble lady is talking about is the young lady of the Bai family. The boy that your daughter wants is young Master Bai Jun. Chief Yan has seen him before. This recording was sent to me by young Master Bai Jun. Young Master still has a copy. I'm not sure who he will send it to. Chief Yan, keep this copy and listen to it properly. Yan Jinghua's hand trembled so much that he couldn't hold the phone at all. His chest was filled with anger, and there was also an indescribable fear. If such a recording was submitted, even if the Bai family didn't have it, he would definitely be punished. His wife could have provoked anyone, but why did she have to provoke the Bai family? Yan Jinghua was so angry that he didn't care about having dinner with the other leaders at night. He called Wan Xian in a very bad tone. "Where are you? Tell me immediately." Wan Xian was stunned by the roar. "Where did you eat? Why are you so angry? I asked you to tell me where you are." Wan Xian listened to Yan Jinghua's roar on the other end of the phone, and her heart was beating like a drum. After telling her the location, she immediately asked her assistant to hurry home. Yan Qin hadn't had enough fun yet. "Mom, didn't we say that we were eating outside today? Your father is angry. I don't know why, but let's go home first." Wan Xian was anxious now. All these years she had a good grasp of Yan Jinghua's temper. Yan Jinghua had never been angry with her like today. What was going on? After all, Wan Xian was in the entertainment industry. Her sense of smell was always more sensitive than that of ordinary people. Her intuition told her that something had happened. However, she didn't know which part of the process had gone wrong, so she could only wait anxiously at home. As soon as Yan Jinghua saw Wan Exin, he threw the phone fiercely at her face. Listen to yourself, listen to what you said. Wan Exin was still smiling. Yan Qin was sitting next to her mother. She was already a junior high school student, so of course she had her own thoughts. Dad, what are you doing to my mother? Shut up. Yan Jinghua turned around. I haven't said anything about you yet. Who taught you to throw yourself at a boy when you see one? You even threatened him and said that as long as he was your boyfriend, you would forgive his sister? Is this what I usually teach you? All the face of our Yan family has been lost by you and your mother. I just like Bai Juan. Is that wrong? Yan Qin roared. How am I throwing myself at him? I was openly liking her. Yan Jinghua was so angry that he felt dizzy. Only when two people are in love with each other is called liking. He has already rejected you so obviously and you still want to go up to him. If this isn't throwing yourself at him, then what is? It's fine if that's the case, but you even went to find trouble with his sister. Do you know who you've offended? Isn't it just the Bai family? I know that they're very rich. Qiner has also said a thing or two. Chapter 1161. Yan Jinghua looked at her. Now you know how to be afraid. Why didn't you think about what would happen to me when you called me? What would happen to me if I were to be sent to the higher-ups? Wan Exin didn't think too much. After all, with the Yan family's power, who would record such a voice? However, she never expected the Bai family to have such a background. Yan Jinghua seemed to have lost all hope. After sitting down, he rubbed his hair. I'll think of a way to turn things around and use the old master's connections. That was the only way. If he calmed down and dealt with it, he might still have a chance of survival. However, Wan Exin didn't think so. He had to win for herself. Subconsciously, she thought of her own influence. The Bai family wasn't an ordinary person, but it was precisely because the Bai family wasn't an ordinary person that they were even more afraid of the pressure of public opinion. She had also thought about it. If the recording was handed over, someone would definitely investigate her husband. If she wanted Yan Jinghua to be fine, she had to fight back. Since they could investigate her husband, why couldn't they investigate the Bai family? If such a topic was released, she didn't believe that the netizens wouldn't stand on her side. Mom, what's wrong? Why is Dad's expression so ugly? Yan Qin was still asking Wan Exin. Wan Exin couldn't care less about her daughter anymore. She took her phone and logged into her Weibo account. In fact, these public accounts were usually kept by the company. Sometimes when an artist posted a message, an assistant would do it for them. However, there were also times when artists could take the initiative to speak up. Wan Exin first thought for a moment, then chose a very dramatic photo to accompany her Weibo post. Then she started to type. Although the content was vague and tactful, it was because of her content that her fans felt that she had been wronged. They all left comments on her Weibo asking her what was wrong. After Wan Exin saw the results, she immediately posted a second Weibo post. It was obvious that her daughter had been beaten up at school. The person who had beaten her was a second-generation heir. In order to protect her daughter, she had called the other party. Her tone was a little impatient, but it was used as evidence to threaten others. Now the other party wanted to use their background to try and discipline her husband. The moment this Weibo post was released, the internet exploded. Wan Exin already had 2 marketing accounts in the entertainment industry. When she logged into the marketing account and changed the topic, the news of her daughter being beaten up and her husband being framed immediately spread all over the internet. The first to stand out were of course Wan Exin's fans. Is there any justice in this world? Goddess, don't cry, we will always support you. Find a way to hunt down that guy. What the fuck, he deleted the comments so quickly. Sure enough, he had a powerful background. What about the relevant departments? Such obvious bullying, shouldn't they come out and do something about it? You still want to frame the Yan family? The Yan family is not to be trifled with, okay? I just want to know who is so arrogant after beating someone up. All of a sudden Weibo was flooded with comments. Master Li was still at Bai Juan's house. The 3 children were having a small meeting and did not listen. He received a call and said that someone was looking for news about their class, so he quickly went on Weibo to take a look. They want to hunt down little Aju. There should be a special person instigating it. There is already a circle of reporters standing outside the school. They insist that the director and the others announce Aju's enrollment information. It's really too scary. Brother Lee, you have to stay at home for the next 2 days. Don't go out. Master Lee pulled at his hair angrily. This Ron Exon is really tired of living. When Bai Juan heard his words, he knew that something had happened. He raised his head and looked at him. What's going on? It's probably the public opinion on the internet. Let's go online and take a look first. As Master Lee spoke, he opened Weibo with his phone. In fact, Bai Juan and the others had never used Weibo. This was somewhat not in line with the habits of their age, but they really did not play these things very much. The comments on the internet looked extremely vicious. It had to be said that Ron Exayan was indeed very capable in some aspects, such as malicious instigation. Bai Juan's beautiful eyes turned cold bit by bit as the comments went on. When Xiao Lin raised his head to look at him, there was nothing but killing intent in his eyes. Hai Lu, there's one thing you're right about. This Ron Exayan is indeed tired of living. Aju was Bai Juan's bottom line. Whoever touched his bottom line meant that Bai Juan had no bottom line in doing things. Xiao Lin, I remember that you have more than 100,000 fans on your game livestream account. Bai Juan slowly raised his hand and pulled up the backup recording on his phone. Go and tell your fans that I will livestream tonight. Li Hailu exclaimed, are you going to show up? It's such a small matter. Master Bai won't show up for you. Xiao Lin also felt that Li Hailu was right. It was really not worth it to break Bai Juan's peaceful life for Ron Exon. Other than a few higher-ups in the school, not many people knew Bai Juan's true background. Once Bai Juan showed up, the things he would have to face in the future would increase. It was impossible for Bai Juan not to know about this. However, Bai Juan still did it. He even told them, Aju's matters are never small matters. What Master Bai had decided to do was usually impossible to change under normal circumstances. The public opinion on the internet had already reached its peak. Wan Exayan's name instantly occupied the headlines of all the major news outlets. Her personal value had also increased. Many media outlets wanted to get the first piece of news about her. Of course, Wan Exayan had been in this circle for a long time. She would not casually accept an interview from any media outlet. She would only say a few words if it was a media outlet that stood on her side. This way, the meaning of I am a victim was vividly portrayed. In addition, she was a permanent guest host of a variety show, so she had the opportunity to appear in front of the camera. As soon as Wan Exayan arrived at the filming location, she was surrounded by the media. Miss Wan, can you talk to us about who tried to frame your husband? We are not afraid of trouble. We just want to let the people know the truth. Wan Exayan lowered her eyes. Her face was painted with sickly makeup. I didn't tell you because I was worried that you would be threatened. At least I'm fine now. Goddess. Wan Exayan shook her head to indicate that she was fine and even considerately told them not to worry. Although there was a filming location, it was not indoors. Right now, the most popular thing in the country was outdoor variety shows. Under normal circumstances, the permanent guests would be asked to do some tasks. The permanent guests in the show all had their own persona. Other than their persona, they could completely rely on themselves to act on the spot. However, everyone in the industry understood that the so-called outdoor variety show also had a script. However, this time even the director was somewhat excited. He did not expect Bailey Shangxie to come at all. Many of the headlines had to be rewritten, but none of this mattered. Only with surprises would there be viewership ratings, not to mention that they were live streaming. The director had a feeling that this time, their station would definitely break the previous ratings legend. As soon as the news of Bailey Shangxie's participation was leaked, there was an overwhelming amount of waiting for the live broadcast. After the director arranged for each of the permanent guests to be in their position, he let them wear the special costumes for this episode and then told them when they should appear. The slogans for this episode had also changed, from real and fake spies to blood-sucking superstars. Wan Exayan stood in her seat. Just as she had thought before, this time she got more than just a little more screen time than before. Even the standing position and lines had been arranged by the director. She watched as the permanent guests entered one by one in a funny or handsome way. Wan Exayan smiled and said, "Now it's our mystery guest's turn to appear. Who will they be? At this moment no one was willing to look away from the screen. Bai Jun was preparing for the live broadcast later. Master Li turned on the television. He had to pay attention to Ruan Xian's movements at all times. Little Aju was wearing a set of little tiger pajamas. She walked back and forth and even squatted down to look under the bed. Aju, what are you looking for? Shaolin pulled the child up. Little Aju pointed at the top of her head. Little White is gone. Li Hailu was also surprised. That cat was always with Aju 24 hours a day. How could it disappear? Speaking of which, that cat was quite strong. How could it lie on little Aju's head without being shaken by anything? Could it have run into the yard? Master Li opened the window and looked outside. Little Aju shook her head and said like a little adult, Little White won't run around. It's not you. Little White is very obedient. Master Li was speechless. I just made a deduction, but you attacked me personally. You can't play like this. Something must have happened. Little Aju touched her little chin as if she was confirming her words. She nodded her head in a dignified manner, and the tiger's tail wagged along with her. Bai Jun knew how to raise a child. Even if he was going to do a live broadcast, he did not forget to apply medicine for little Aju. Bai Jun sat there and hugged the child. He held a cotton swab in one hand and dipped it in the medicine beside him. His slender fingers held the cotton swab and applied it on little Aju's face. In fact, it was much easier for Bai Jun to gain sympathy than Ruan Xian because once such a young child was exposed, it would be obvious who was bullying Hook. But the reason why people were different was because everyone had different bottom lines. First of all, Bai Jun would not try to gain anyone's sympathy. Second of all, he would not expose any information about little Aju, let alone let her show her face. He would only uproot people. Chapter 1163. The little girl sat obediently in Bai Jun's arms. She tilted her big head and wondered if she should use the dried fish to lure her cat back earlier. In the end, she thought about it again. Little White did not need her to worry. When she was young, she had seen Little White show its power. Once Little White showed its power, it would turn into a big tiger and was not afraid of those stray dogs at all. But where did Little White go? The little girl was still puzzled. At the filming site, a pure white cat was lying on the shoulder of a young man who was the center of attention. It purred a few times in a low voice. The young man was wearing a pure black leather jacket on his upper body. He had a head of pure silver hair and a handsome face like that of a vampire noble. It was as if he had been kissed by God. He was only a junior high school student, but he had the glory of a superstar. The light shone on his face as if all of it was sucked in. His thin lips moved slightly. His teeth were very white, and when they were exposed there was always a strong sense of evil. After the cat purred, it left his shoulder. Countless people were calling out to the camera, "Young master." The young man pushed open the car door with a bang and walked over just like that. He was clearly only 11 or 12 years old, but his aura was very strong. He really did not need makeup. His perfect facial features were almost too beautiful. Our last Prince Charming, Bailey Shangxie. Ruan Xian took the lead to clap. Her eyes were looking at Bailey Shangxie. She could almost see the explosive performance of this episode. In the Bai family, little Aju, who was originally sitting obediently in Bai Jun's arms, suddenly stood up straight. She wagged her cute tiger tail and ran to the front of the television. Then she squatted there and looked eagerly at Bailey Shangxie, who appeared on the stage. Her focused look was even more serious than when she was eating. Li Hailu touched the bridge of his nose. He did not forget that a year ago when he was shopping with little Aju, he casually said something bad about Bailey Shangxie, and she bore a grudge against him. It seems that Aju really likes this celebrity. Li Hailu sighed and turned to look at Bai Jun and the others. Shaolin frowned. His identity isn't simple. I don't know how many times more influential the topic is than Ruan Xian. If he participates in this show, it won't be very beneficial to what we're going to do later. However, Bai Jun did not seem to care about this at all. His eyes were looking at the child squatting in front of the television. At this moment, Aju's eyes did not have the slightest hint of his existence. Bai Jun did not know how to describe that feeling. However, in little Aju's eyes, other than Bailey Shangxie, he could not find anyone else. Bai Jun's hand suddenly tightened. The cotton swab was broken in his hand just like that, and his palm was stained with the medicine. Little Aju did not notice. Her little claws were still clinging to the ground, and her big eyes were very bright. Bailey Shangxie came with anger, but as a demon he had a special characteristic. The angrier he was, the better he looked when he smiled. Among the permanent guests, there was a male star with good acting skills. As a representative, he had acted with Bailey Shangxie before. Of course, he was the one who received Bailey Shangxie. Our young master is finally here. I'm really too excited. Although I'm not your fan, my daughter is very much your fan. Bailey Shangxie laughed and did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Wan Xian. The camera immediately followed his gaze. Wan Xian really felt that her luck was getting better and better. She deliberately revealed a tired smile. When I saw Shangxie, I thought of my daughter. They seem to be about the same age. If only my daughter had a brother like Shangxie. That way someone would protect her. Wan Xian turned to look at the camera. One of my daughter's classmates was also at the scene at that time. Her arm was broken and she is now lying in the hospital. In fact, I can't imagine what kind of treatment my daughter would have suffered if I hadn't arrived in time. Bailey Shangxie's thin lips curled up. Ms. Wan, what you've said is just repeating what you posted on Weibo. Why was your daughter beaten up? Why didn't you say a word? This is the cause, isn't it? How could she have the nerve to bring two sports students to find trouble with a 6-year-old child? Wan Xian, didn't you hint on Weibo that the little girl who hit someone this time has a background? Now I'll tell you, I can also become her background. You want to incite public opinion, right? Then let's compete. Let's see if I can incite public opinion better, or if you can. All the cameras recorded it. After Wan Xian heard this, her face turned extremely pale. She pushed away the person beside her in a panic and shouted, "This is framing me." However, she could not hide her escape. The program was paused. Bailey Shangxie kept his word and directly left the video resources to Li Tai. All the netizens were rendered speechless by such a turn of events. The video clearly recorded what kind of behavior Wan Xian's daughter usually had. In an instant, the netizens were filled with anger. Bai Juan looked at the television screen and made a decisive decision. Shaolin, get ready. We'll start the live broadcast now. Less than 5 minutes after Bailey Shangxie spoke, the game livestream god appeared. Many people looked at their computers in a daze. The game people did not expect that one day, they would see the god reveal his true appearance. It was a youth who was so handsome that he could almost be a celebrity. He wore the simplest school uniform, but he gave people an innate sense of nobility. His voice was very clear, so clean that it made people involuntarily want to listen to him. Today, I'm not going to livestream the siege. Instead, I want to tell everyone that I'm the person with a red background that Wan Xian mentioned. As soon as Bai Juan opened his mouth, the number of people in the virtual room instantly doubled. He raised his eyes and looked straight into the camera, as if he wanted to imprint this gaze into everyone's hearts. The one who hit them was my little sister. I don't want to say that she's young, but I just want to ask all of you. If you had a little sister who was usually obedient and cute, but she was still sitting in the classroom and someone came to provoke her and even wanted to hit her, would you stand up for her at the first moment? I would. Even if I have a red background, I'm just an ordinary person. My grandfather taught me since I was young that as a hot-blooded Chinese, I had to protect my family first before I could protect my country. However, I didn't expect that the identity that I should be proud of would become a bargaining chip for the other party to attack me. But even so, I still have to say that no matter what my family is like, I won't lose my bottom line. Today I'm standing here just to seek justice for my sister. Wan Xian's Weibo post targeted my sister. Many netizens threatened to hunt her down as if they believed that we were the ones in the wrong. In fact, Wan Xian had never told everyone the real truth. Now I have the truth in my hands. You can listen to the voice in this recording and see what your goddess said. Chapter 1165. That recording was very clear. Even through the screen, those who heard it could feel the ugly expression on Wan Xian's face as she used her power to oppress others. A live broadcast that lasted less than 10 minutes spread all over the internet at lightning speed. The big names on Weibo reposted it one after another. Won Xian's fans were still arguing below. This must be deliberately released to defame our goddess. Our goddess is always polite to people on the show. How could she speak in such a tone? Was this recording edited by someone? Bailey Shangxia saw those brainless comments and posted on Weibo without hesitation. A face-slapping expert's recording appraisal. Won Xian's fans calmed down. Other than that appraisal, there was another thing that they could not compare to those young masters fans at all. Shangxia's fans all had one characteristic, and that was rationality. When things came, they would not attack people everywhere like other fans, saying that this was not good or that was not good. Instead, they would go straight to the point. In the future, I must keep my son away from the person who has a crush on him. What if she threatens her family so easily? Does the translation of this recording mean that if you agree to date my daughter won't find trouble with your sister anymore? Fuck, I wonder if my Prince Charming will kick me away if I use this to threaten him. Upstairs, your Prince Charming will only beat you up until you can't take care of yourself. Kicking you away won't vent his anger at all, okay? No wonder young master is angry this time. No matter who knows the inside story, they won't be able to tolerate this. Indeed, they could not tolerate it. The things that Won Xian had done had already exceeded people's understanding of the bottom line. When people saw the video, the young man said calmly, "Even if I have a red background, I'm just an ordinary person. My grandfather taught me since I was young that as a hot-blooded Chinese, I had to protect my family first before I could protect my country. However, I didn't expect that the identity that I should be proud of would become a bargaining chip for the other party to attack me." Many people were moved when they heard that. Perhaps in their impression, people with special backgrounds would always bully others. However, when this young man said that he wanted to protect his country, his eyes were so pure. He was right. That identity that should have made him proud should not have become a bargaining chip for Won Xian to attack him. Among the young master's fans, there were not many high-ranking people in society. Compared to ordinary groupies, they had their own set of analysis. First, they commented on the live stream. There was no lack of professional legal personnel among them. Let's not talk about the background and look at it as a normal incident. Madame Won used her identity to create public opinion and severely damaged a little girl's reputation. When the netizens wanted to conduct a human search on this little girl, if it wasn't for her family background, her health would have become a hidden danger. Madame Won has to bear legal responsibility for this entire incident. Let's talk about the background. After watching the live broadcast, my heart was in turmoil. I believe that the internet guru has already learned about the information of the young man in the live broadcast. If he really wanted to use his background to suppress her, I'm afraid that Ms. Won wouldn't even have the chance to post on Weibo. She would be directly taken to jail. Perhaps everyone still doesn't understand the bottom line of his words after watching the live broadcast. When you truly understand his background, you'll understand what he's saying. Even if his identity allows him to exercise a lot of privileges, he still won't do it. The young man's surname is Bai, and he's the only grandson of the military chief. He shouldn't have shown his face at this time, but he used the most sincere method to tell everyone that all he wanted to do was seek justice for his sister. This time I won't talk about the law. I'll talk about favors. I also have a sister. Whoever dares to bully my sister like this, see if I'll beat them up. This person's last sentence said what everyone was thinking. Won Xian was still in a panic, trying to find her close friends to think of a way to help her. However, what were those people afraid of? They immediately hung up after answering her call. At first, Won Xian thought that the other party was afraid of the Bai family's strength, but after thinking about it carefully, it was just like what was said on Weibo. The Bai family would not pressure the media and would only directly attack the Yen family. Some of them still answered her call and revealed some news to her. Won Xian, don't call anymore. Things have already come to this. Of all the people you could have provoked, why did you have to provoke Bailey Shangxia? It's not that we don't want to help you, but you've gone too far this time. There's really no way to turn things around. Won Xian clenched her fists when she heard the other party's words. I've never provoked Bailey Shangxia. Then why did he stand up for you? That person sighed. And Xiao Ju allowed him to do whatever he wanted. Do you know what this means? This means that CEO Ju wants you to completely disappear from the entertainment industry. Won Xian's fingers paused. She felt as if she had lost her soul and all the strength in her body had been sucked away. She no longer had any hope of making the call. She turned around and said to the two assistants, "Think of a way to find a photo of that little girl in school and expose her." This was the best way to turn public opinion away. However, the two assistants slapped their work passes. "If you want to go by yourself. We still have a conscience. We won't do this job anymore." After the two assistants finished speaking, they were about to leave. Unexpectedly, the moment they turned around, they saw Bailey Shangxie, who was known by the media as the blood-sucking youth. He glanced at them and said to the manager next to him, "Find new jobs for these two people and post a copy of the recording online. Bai's method is still acceptable." Hearing this, Won Xian's face turned pale. Her hands trembled as she said, "Young Master Shangxie, do you have some misunderstanding about me? Did I do something to make you unhappy in the past? I can change. Or are you doing this to me because the Bai family asked you to come? Whatever they gave you, the Yen family can give you too." In order to prove her sincerity, Won Xian even took out her phone as if she wanted to call someone. Bailey Shangxie smiled. "The Bai family? My appearance has nothing to do with the Bai family. Then why did you?" Won Xian couldn't figure out what the problem was. Bailey Shangxie walked up to her. "Miss Won, you should know that the child your daughter is looking for trouble with is not the biological child of the Bai family, right?" Won Xian nodded in confusion. Was this very important? Bailey Shangxie lowered his voice into her ear and said, "You asked me why I'm targeting you. The reason is very simple. It's because I'm a Ju's biological brother." Chapter 1166. Won Xian was shocked and her fingers trembled uncontrollably. Biological brother? In other words, that child was the little princess of Ju Wei group who had never shown her face. Won Xian's eyes widened. How could this be? It shouldn't have turned out like this. Won Xian suddenly remembered what her friend had reminded her on the phone just now. The other party said that this time, it was that man who wanted her to disappear from the entertainment industry. Won Xian shivered and then fell heavily to the ground. It was over. This time she was really finished. A recording was enough for people to see Won Xian's face clearly. Many advertising companies withdrew their cooperation with her. Even the reality show that she had participated in had called her and told her not to go anymore. Won Xian knew that once her exposure was stopped, she would be considered useless. There's also the Yen family. The Yen family will definitely think of a way for me. Won Xian seemed to have lost her mind. She was determined to find her way back. The news of Yan Jingwa being interrogated was exposed at this time. Once Won Xian's recording was released, there would definitely be people involved in the investigation. If Won Xian knew how to restrain herself a little, Yan Jingwa might have only been brought over for questioning. Won Xian made a fuss and used her identity to incite public opinion, which caused the Yan family to completely lose. The Yan family fell. Won Xian was also excluded from the entertainment industry. There was nothing more torturous for Won Xian than this. Yan Qin did not dare to go out because many people were scolding her on the internet. They scolded her just like how they scolded a Jew back then. At that time she even looked at Weibo and laughed for a long time. She wished that those people would expose a Jew so that she would not be such a hindrance and always stick to Bai Juan's side. Now she was afraid of such a backlash. When Won Xian went to knock on the door, Yan Qin started to shout and even shouted impulsively, "Aren't you very capable in the entertainment industry? Then tell them to shut up. In the end it was useless and even implicated my father. If he goes to prison, who will take care of me? Those people on the internet said that you only got where you are today by selling yourself. Why is a person like you my mother?" Won Xian felt her head buzzing. She had done so many things, other than for herself, it was for her daughter. She originally thought that no matter what she lost, her daughter would always be by her side. But he didn't expect that Yan Qin actually cared about who could bring her a better life. At that moment Won Xian seemed to have seen herself, another version of herself who had yet to grow up. But it was this kind of her that made Won Xian's eyes completely lose their light. She was kicked out of the family by her own daughter because her daughter was worried that she would split the Yen family's assets. This reason might sound ridiculous in front of others. But all of this really happened. It started to rain outside at night. In just one day, Won Xian had a taste of what it meant to be better off dead. In the heavy rain, she awkwardly carried her suitcase like a stray dog. She didn't dare to speak because once she did, it would quickly attract the attention of the media. She understood their line of work very well. Once a person was unlucky, those interviews would come flooding in. However, these things weren't what made Won Xian's heart the most disappointed. It was her daughter. Why is this happening? Won Xian clenched her fists tightly. When she was about to walk forward, a slender figure appeared in front of her. The man had an extremely handsome face. Many media outlets, whether domestic or foreign, wanted to get a frontal photo of him, but every time, those reporters would fail. He stood in front of her. He was wearing a straight black suit, but his hair was silver gray, like mercury under the moonlight. Every detail was filled with the unique elegance of a man. The rain didn't seem to be able to touch him at all. He just looked at her with an indifferent gaze. Ju Xiaoju. Won Xian took a step back, her eyes wavering. You're asking why? It's very simple. Demons are originally nourished from the hearts of people. Don't you often do this kind of thing? You use Weibo to incite public opinion and awaken the darkness in some people's hearts. The man smiled a little as if he was playful. You humans have a saying that is very right. The kind of person you are, you will look at others from that perspective. In other words, if your nature is bad, you will also understand a good thing from a bad perspective and then curse in anger. That's why it's not strange that your daughter has become like this. What did you do to Xiaoqin? Won Xian's entire face flushed red as she roared at the top of her lungs. This question made Beligaju tilt his head. His tone was very indifferent. She's your daughter. What do you need me to do? You've taught her well enough. Enjoy the consequences of your own actions now. Won Xian stood up and wanted to grab the man's sleeve, but she realized that all she could grab was black feathers that fell one after another. Bailey Jiaju walked into the carriage with his long legs slightly crossed. He glanced at Bailey Shangxie beside him and said, "Don't tell your mother about this." "I know." Bailey Shang laughed evilly. His demon-like little face was poisonous and full of mockery. Humans were really too easy to incite. That was why he didn't like to post on Weibo. Because some humans really couldn't even compare to demons. At the very least, demons were more consistent on the surface. It was said that crimes in the heart were the most terrifying. In this world, there were countless dark thoughts that could only be vented on the internet. Bailey Shangxie was very worried that his sister would be in a bad mood when she saw those comments. After all, anyone who was scolded by a bunch of inexplicable people would feel wronged. Moreover, she didn't know those people. Reality proved that Bailey Shangxie, who had a sister complex, was thinking too much. Because ever since little Aju watched TV and found out about Weibo, her attention was completely not on those people who had scolded her before. Instead, she held her little face and wagged the little tail on her pajamas. She eagerly clung to the computer and looked at Bailey Shangxie's Weibo. Then her little claws hit the keyboard. She wanted to comment, but she found that she still had to register an account. She didn't have a QQ email nor a phone number. She could only hold her laptop and run to Bai Juan. "Little brother, help me register." Bai Juan's left hand that was holding the book slowly clenched. His voice was a little cold. "Aju, you've been looking at Weibo for 3 hours. You can't look at it anymore. It's not good for your eyes." "I'm not looking. I'm commenting." The little girl sat in Bai Juan's arms and said very seriously, "It says that you can comment." Chapter 1167. Bai Juan's fingers that were holding the notebook paused. "Comment? What do you want to comment on? I'll write it for you." I saw a lot of fans leaving comments below saying that they like it very much. Little Aju tilted her big head and leaned against Bai Juan. Her big round eyes were very bright as she stared at the screen and said, "Little brother, just write that I will always like and support you. Always like." When Bai Juan heard these 4 words, the strength of his typing became stronger and the sound of his typing became louder. Here, write that." Aju left it. The little girl's lotus-like little arm poked at the end of the Weibo post. She looked very cute. However, Bai Juan's eyes were only filled with the words always like. After he typed the comment, he did not send it. Instead, he glanced sideways at the little girl in his arms. His tone was very calm as he used the way he used to teach the child. There are many celebrities like this in entertainment companies. What you see is only the surface of these people. Aju, I don't object to you chasing celebrities, but there has to be a limit to chasing celebrities. You have been staring at this person's Weibo since just now. You even forgot to brush your teeth and take a shower even if you like him very much. At this point, Bai Juan paused as if he was enduring something. He repeated, even if you like him very much, you shouldn't let him affect your daily life. Moreover, are you sure that he's as good as you look? Am I right? Entertainment companies are too good at packaging these people. You don't even know what his most real side is like. It's too rash to say that you like him. If it was in the past, the little girl in his arms would have immediately put down the mouse and chanted Amitabha. Then she would have sincerely prayed to Buddha and admitted her mistake. However, things were a little unexpected. Not only did little Aju not listen to him, but she also looked at him very seriously. Her little face also became serious and her tone was full of protection. Even if I haven't seen him in person, I know that he is different from other celebrities. He is him. This was the first time the little girl refuted him. Moreover, she was so righteous. Bai Juan could not tell what he felt in his heart. He always thought that he was the most important in Aju's heart. But now he realized that this perception was wrong in some aspects. He had seen the little girl like this before. It was not long after Aju arrived here. He took her shopping because Hai Lu said that Bailey Shangxie was not good. She even said that she wanted to beat Hai Lu up. Do you like that celebrity that much? Bai Juan looked sideways and saw that the little one was still staring at the laptop screen. He was instantly enraged. Since you are so disobedient, what do you want me to do? Bai Juan flung his hand through the notebook on the bed, slammed the door and walked out. Little Aju still did not understand what had happened. She sat up straight. Was she disobedient? Little Aju did not know if she was obedient or not, but this trouble was indeed caused by her. She also heard from little Gangster Lee that her little brother had done a lot of things for her and spent a lot of effort. Was it because she was disobedient? Little Aju thought about the comments on Weibo that scolded her. Some people said that having a sister like her was a burden. She wondered if she was really as clingy as those people said. It was already so late, but she still asked her little brother to help her write comments. Usually at this time her little brother would have already gone to bed, and she would be staring at the computer all the time. But she wanted to see her big brother more. Her big brother seemed to have grown taller again. When she touched the screen she was really happy. After knowing that there was a Weibo, she wanted to send a comment to her big brother. She should have waited until tomorrow. Why was she in such a hurry? Little Aju tilted her head and raised her small fist to hit her big head. Idiot Aju. As she said that, the child stood up and ran downstairs. Bai Juan's shadow was long gone. On this day little Aju slept alone. She looked left and right but there was no one around. She could only sit up and start to meditate with her legs crossed. After an unknown amount of time she looked outside. The sky was still dark but Grandpa Bai had woken up. She went to ask Grandpa Bai, "Grandpa Bai, where did little brother go?" "Don't worry about that kid. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he insisted on staying at the Lee family for a few days. He even told people not to look for him." Grandpa Bai slept very little and was a very light sleeper. "Come Aju, sit over here. Tell Grandpa, have you done anything interesting in school recently?" She felt that she had to answer this question seriously. "Every day is very interesting. It's just that those people are too weak and can't spar with me. The teacher also told me not to always beat people up and to reason with them. But I don't like to reason with them. I just like to chant scriptures and beat people up." Grandpa Bai was amused by the little girl's seriousness. "You have to listen to the teacher. Even if you want to beat people up, you have to endure it. I know that. After that, I became very kind." The little girl wore the little tiger pajamas and spun around on the sofa. "But Grandpa, isn't little brother not used to living outside? He has to hug something to sleep." Grandpa Bai raised his eyebrows. "He has to hug something to sleep? When did his grandson have this hobby?" "Yes." Little Aju nodded heavily. Grandpa Bai smiled helplessly. "Little Aju, don't think that I'm an elder. When your little brother is stubborn, even his parents can't persuade him. I saw that he left in a huff just now. Even if Grandpa goes to the Lee family now, he might not come back with Grandpa unless we wait for him to think it through himself. Let's wait a little longer? Okay. Little Aju sat there and closed her eyes. Grandpa Bai was about to carry the little girl up. Little Aju said, Grandpa, we've been waiting for a minute. Let's look for little brother now. Old Master Bai burst out laughing. He stroked the little girl's head with his big palm. Little Aju, not everyone is like you, able to understand problems so quickly. Most people are always immersed in their own thoughts. Sometimes it's very difficult for them to come out. Therefore they need a lot of things and we have to give them this time. Do you understand? Yes. After little Aju finished speaking, she added, Buddha Wooly said that this is called obsession. Having an obsession means that you care. Grandpa Bai was shocked. Master once said that you have a fate with Buddha. I only understand now. You're right. It's precisely because you care that you have an obsession. But this time little brother was angry not because of an obsession, but because she was disobedient. Little Aju twisted her small body and glanced at Lee Halu's house. Her little head drooped and the little tail of her pajamas swept the stairs as she walked back step by step. Grandpa Bai looked at the little girl's lonely back and thought about the sound of his grandson slamming the door just now. Did these two children quarrel? Chapter 1168. On the other side, Master Li, who had been dug up in the middle of the night, rubbed his eyes and looked at Bai Jun in surprise. Master Bai, why are you here? It's a little abnormal at night. I'm here to stay the night. After saying that, Bai Jun sat on the sofa opposite him, his fingers fiddling with his game consoles. Master Li immediately sobered up. Stay the night. Master Bai, who had never shared a bed with anyone, came to stay the night at the Li family's house? What's wrong? Am I not welcome? Bai Jun drank a mouthful of water and his broken hair hung down, blocking his eyes. Master Li shook his head vigorously. You're very welcome, but Master Bai, didn't you say that you were sleeping in the same bed as someone else? So I'll sleep on the bed later and you sleep on the sofa. Bai Jun touched Master Li's face with a cup, which meant that he was going upstairs. Master Li's face was full of disbelief. Whose house was this? No, wait a minute, did you come by yourself? With Master Bai's 24 hours a day desire to see little Aju, was it really not normal for little Aju not to follow him? Can't I come by myself? Bai Jun turned his face sideways. However, Master Li could still feel the different coldness emitted from his body at that moment. Hehe too okay. It was definitely not normal. Master Li was also a wise man who adapted to the situation. His mind turned quickly. Looking at Master Bai's attitude, it was definitely because the two of them had a falling out. But thinking about it carefully, Master Bai doted on the child so much that he wanted to hold little Aju in his hand. Little Aju also kept to Bai Jun's words. Why were the two of them falling out? It was not easy for Master Li to be smart for once, and he was very gossipy. He took out his phone and sent Shaolin a WeChat message. Brother, there's a situation. Master Bai ran away from home and is now staying at my house. Do you want to come over and watch? Master Li waited for a minute, but there was no movement on his phone. He thought that Shaolin had already fallen asleep. He did not expect that after a while Bai Jun finished showering, his WeChat message also rang. Young Master Shao only sent him 2 words, wait for me. Sure enough, no matter how boring a person was, they were powerless in front of gossip. Li Hailu rubbed his chin and laughed again. When he looked up, Master Bai had already changed into a simple white t-shirt. He lifted the blanket and was about to sleep. Master Bai, what time is it? Why are you sleeping? You'll get high when you do it. Li Bawang thought to himself, if the male lead falls asleep, how can I continue to gossip? Bai Jun glanced at him and then looked at the watch hanging on the wall. 12:30. Don't you want to copy tomorrow's homework? Little gangster Li shrank back and put his arm over. Master Bai, don't be so serious. I see that you are in a bad mood, so I want to help you solve your problems. How about playing games with you? Master Li originally thought that Bai Jun would refuse, but he did not expect Bai Jun to actually smile at him. His eyes were a little cold. All right. What? Why wasn't Master Bai sleeping at this time? Sure enough, there was a situation. No matter what, he had to open his laptop and connect to the internet first. Little gangster Lee logged in with his game account and glanced sideways at Lord Bai's swift and fierce finger technique. He didn't know who Lord Bai was hacking in the game, but one thing was certain. The other party would definitely be beaten countless times. When he was almost done, Master Lee deliberately pretended to be uneasy and said, "Brother, let me tell you, this child will rebel when she is 5 or 6 years old. Look, when I was 6 years old, my father didn't let me wet the bed, so I deliberately made him drink it. In the end, he found out and chased me all over the courtyard, wanting to strangle me to death." Don't talk about such a wicked thing. Bai Jun was as good as always. Master Li glared at him. He thought to himself, am I not comforting him? I haven't even gotten to the main topic and he's already attacking me personally. Only a Jew could withstand his attacks. However, Master Bai, what's wrong with you and a Jew? Is she also rebellious? Master Li advised Bai Jun like an adult. Master Bai, she's a girl so she can't be that rebellious. You should give in to her. Bai Jun didn't say anything, but the strength in his hand was exceptionally strong. Master Li couldn't help but ask again, why? You really want to know? Bai Jun turned his eyes to look at him. The corners of his mouth were still half-curved, and he didn't seem to be in a particularly bad mood. Master Li thought that he had seen a glimmer of hope, so he nodded desperately. Bai Jun turned his attention back to the game. I don't want to tell you. Master Li was speechless. Then why did you ask so many questions? He really wanted to beat someone up. Fortunately, at this juncture, Shaolin pushed the door open and walked in. He looked up at the two of them. Are you playing a game? Bai Jun glanced back at him. Yes, do you want to join? I came to take a look. Shaolin walked over and looked at the defeated little gangster Li. Li Hailu immediately understood and gave up his seat. As soon as Shaolin sat down, he said, I just came from the Bai family. The lights are still on there. A Jew is still so young. She's probably not used to sleeping without someone to accompany her. Bai Jun put down the mouse in his hand. He looked like he wanted to stand up. However, when he thought of what the child had said today, that thought immediately faded away. Even his voice seemed to be a little foggy. She will get used to it sooner or later. After saying that, Bai Jun put on his headphones. His slender fingers tapped on the mouse. It was a very beautiful operation. This time even Shaolin was surprised. He turned around and looked at Li Hailu. The two of them communicated with their eyes. Shaolin, what's going on? Master Li, how would I know? I was in a daze when I heard Master Bai say that he wanted to stay the night. I was so scared that I peed my pants. Shaolin, I was asking why they quarreled. Master Li glared at him. I don't know about that either. Just now when I asked, Master Bai started to attack me personally. He even said that he would let me sleep on the sofa today and he would sleep on the bed. Shaolin did not communicate with the other party and directly stood up. Master Li reached out and grabbed his sleeve. Where are you going? Go home. It's already so late. It's time to sleep. Shaolin said very righteously, you should go to bed early too. Don't think too much. Master Li gritted his teeth. Fuck, this guy actually ran away at the last minute. Hailu, didn't you say that you would join the game? Aren't you going to play the game? Bai Jun's voice came from behind. Master Li glanced at the time on his watch again. It was 1:00 in the morning. This was the rhythm of driving someone to death. After logging into the game, he saw that Bai Jun's account was red. Many people were shocked. They sent him private messages to ask him what was wrong with the Almighty. He could not kill the people of the Alliance. Master Li said, my account was hacked. On the other hand, he had to be on guard against Master Bai, who would kill him if he did not see it. This night had been really sad. Little Aju, what happened to you and your little brother? Chapter 1169. Little Aju didn't know either. But the next day, the first thing the child did when she opened her eyes was to look for Bai Jun. Little Aju had always woken up early. After all, it was a habit she had developed in the temple to do morning exercises. Moreover, the job of buying breakfast for the Bai family was now handed over to her. Therefore, before 6:00 in the morning, little Aju knocked on the door of the Li family in her running shoes and a small sportswear. The person who opened the door was Li Heilu's grandmother. Little Aju was very polite. She bowed and said, "Grandma Lee, I'm looking for my little brother." In the entire courtyard, Grandma Lee liked little Aju the most. Looking at the child's small face and big eyes, she cried out, "My little baby, your little brother and brother Lee are still sleeping. The two of them must have been secretly playing yesterday. Today we didn't even hear a sound." "I see." Little Aju lowered her big head in disappointment. The cat tail on her head even swayed twice. Grandma Lee also felt that there was something wrong with the two children. Usually, when did the boy from the Bai family not bring little Aju with him? Yesterday it was a little strange. "Little Aju, did you quarrel with your little brother?" "No." Grandma Lee raised her eyebrows. "If they didn't quarrel, why did it become like this?" "It's Aju who is not obedient." The child pouted and said, "I won't be clingy in the future." Grandma Lee was confused when she heard this. Clingy? That boy from the Bai family did not mind that Aju was clingy. Every day when she left for a while he would be extremely worried. Even someone as old as Grandma Lee had never seen a child raised like this. It was as if he doted on her to the bone. However, this time the boy from the Bai family did seem to think that Aju was clingy. No wonder the child would think so. Little Aju did not call Bai Juan back. She was a little listless during breakfast. Her lotus root-like calves swayed there and she did not eat much. She felt that she could not continue like this. Without her little brother, she felt that it was strenuous to drink soup. In the past, when she was in the temple, this kind of situation would not happen. It must be because she was too dependent on her little brother. This was not good. She was going to be the abbot of the temple in the future. How could she not even be able to do such a small thing? After thinking it through, little Aju waved her little claws and finished off all the fried dough sticks. She thought that when it was almost time for school she would go to the Lee family again. Little brother had to go to school. Without the chauffeur, how could little brother go to school? However, this time Aju missed again. When he came over to ask, it turned out that Bai Juan had already left in the Lee family's car. Little Aju was stunned for a while before she climbed into the car by herself. She sat in the back seat of the driver's seat and her little mind was blank. When they got out of the car, the other students in the school were also there. Why did she come by herself today? Where's school hunk Bai? I heard that he came in another car. It's really strange. This school hunk Bai's surname is Bai, right? Why did the car become a special seat for an outsider? Lower your voice. Don't let her hear you. School hunk Bai doesn't allow anyone to say such things. Didn't you watch the live broadcast? Even if this child is adopted, the Bai family still treats her as their own. We have to be careful. Of course I saw it. If I didn't see it, I wouldn't have known that school hunk Bai's family was so powerful. They're really too handsome. Little Aju listened to the discussions and carried her small school bag. She lowered her head and kicked the small stone under her feet. If it was in the past, she would not have cared about these words at all. But today she thought about it. During dinner, only she and Auntie Wong were at the dining table. The seat that should have been Bai Juan's was taken by her. Also, the car that she took to school today was also Bai Juan's. This way she was in the Bai family, but Bai Juan had left. It was as if she had taken Bai Juan's things. But Bai Juan had also said that they were family. Family should be together. Little Aju always felt that there were two voices in her mind. This was a phenomenon that had never happened before. The white cat on top of her head narrowed its eyes and called out, "Meow." Little White. Little Aju picked up the little white cat. "Are you hungry? I'll feed you snacks during class." The child finally diverted her attention and fed the little white cat a lot of food. As she fed it, she muttered to herself. It turned out that she was chanting scriptures. Little Aju was chanting Buddhist scriptures. When she went down the mountain, her master had told her to chant the Tranquil Heart Sutra when she encountered problems. After chanting for a while, the little girl stood up. Unfortunately, the bell for class had already rung. It was not appropriate for her to go in now, so she automatically stood in the corner as punishment. "Little Aju, I'll secretly watch the teacher for you. Come in," the classmate by the window whispered to her. The little girl chanted Ba. "You can't do anything against your conscience. Woolly Buddha will see it." Just like that, little Aju stood in the corridor for a period of class with the little white cat on her head. The teacher also felt sorry for the child, so she did not let her go under the sun. However, these things still reached Bai Juan's ears. "Brother, are you really not going to see little Aju?" I heard that the child was punished by their teacher. Li Hailu described very exaggeratedly. That little face is red from the sun. It's not like you don't know little Aju's physique. What if she gets sunburned? Bai Juan clenched his hand that was holding the pencil. He lowered his head and continued to solve the math problem. He did not say a word. Only his fingers slowly exerted strength. Li Hailu was actually very sleepy. He felt that Master Bai was simply a genius. He did not sleep at all last night. He probably only slept for less than 2 hours at 5 or 6 o'clock. He was actually able to drag him to class at 7:30 in the morning. Other than his exceptionally cold face, it was completely impossible to tell that he had suffered from insomnia yesterday. Instead, his facial features had a kind of overly fair beauty. Unlike him, who started to yawn as soon as class started, the math teacher had already glared at him 3 or 4 times in a row. If he continued to glare at him, he would definitely call his parents. What Li Hailu was most afraid of was that the teacher would talk to his father. The teacher's original intention was to let his father have a good and serious chat with him. However, when his mother was not around, his father would only chase after him seriously and beat him up all over the courtyard. This was really a very bad memory. Master Bai. Li Hailu did not believe that Bai Juan would not care. However, it was obvious that Bai Juan had entered the state of doing questions. It was as if he could not listen to anyone. The math teacher, on the other hand, was a little unlucky. Because when he wrote down the second solution, Bai Juan raised his hand and said in a very calm voice, "Teacher, it's not right to solve this problem like this." The math teacher liked Bai Juan the most. When he heard that it was not right, he raised his eyebrows and called Bai Juan to the podium. His original intention was to teach this kid a lesson so that he would know that even if he was smarter than the teacher in class, he should not directly point out the teacher's mistakes. As soon as little Aju finished speaking, Vice Commander Zhang came over. He held an umbrella in his hand and seemed to be very anxious. "Little miss, I thought you were lost. Fortunately, you are still in school. Where's little brother?" Although she knew that she should not ask, little Aju still could not help but ask. Vice Commander Zhang paused for a moment before saying, "Young master called and said that the teacher had asked him to stay. He will probably go back very late today." "I see." Little Aju nodded her little head. "Then I'll go back obediently first." Vice Commander Zhang smiled. Yes, the old man is still waiting for little miss to go back for dinner. As he said that, he turned his head and said to the female teacher, "Thank you, teacher. Aju has always been obedient. It's just that I didn't expect that Bai Juan would actually be asked to stay in the office because he had offended the teacher. What exactly was going on? He was such an all-round talent. Weren't all the teachers in the middle school fighting to accept him as their disciple?" Little Aju climbed into the Hummer parked at the school gate and looked at Vice Commander Zhang. "Little brother, are you going home for dinner later? Young master probably won't go back. He said that he will stay at the Li family to do his homework today." Little Aju nodded. She lowered her little head and hugged her little white cat. Even her ears drooped down. Vice Commander Zhang could not bear to see her like this. "Why don't I call the Li family again tonight and ask?" Little Aju shook her head and did not say anything. After returning home, she turned on the computer and found Bailey Shangxia's Weibo. She registered an account for herself. The last time her second brother came, he said that if there was anything, they could discuss it with him. Should she leave a message for her big brother and ask him how to solve this kind of problem? The little girl hesitated for a moment and typed a line of words. After little Aju finished posting, she waited there eagerly. She originally thought that if she posted something, her big brother would see it. Later, she found out that Weibo had to be a private message. Bailey Shangxia was a celebrity, so of course he would not accept anyone's private messages. Little Aju looked at the message that was drowned out by the comments and was completely depressed. Perhaps she should listen to Grandpa Bai and give her little brother some time? After little Aju thought it through, she did not go to the Li family again. She obediently accompanied the old man to eat. When she was bored, she began to roll on the sofa. In the middle of the meal, old Master Bai received another call from Bai Juan. "Brat, what's wrong with you? You don't even come back for dinner? Hayla's grades haven't been good these 2 days. I stayed at the Li family to tutor him. Bai Juan's tone was very indifferent. Little Aju was listening by the side and knew that this was an excuse. Not to mention old Master Bai. He glanced at the little girl beside him and lowered his voice. Aju is by my side. Do you want to talk to her? The other end of the phone seemed to pause for a moment and then the sound of rain could be heard. No, Grandpa is here. After saying that, Bai Juan hung up the phone. Old Master Bai was so angry that he almost choked. He looked at little Aju who was staring at him with her big eyes. He could only cough a few times before saying to the little girl, from the sound of it, your little brother is still in school. It shouldn't be very convenient to talk to him. Aju came to look for me. Bai Juan's tone was very calm, and his expression was also very calm. Even his feet were very steady. If Shaolin did not have eyes, he would have really come because of the child. But in the end it was very likely that Bai Juan was really drunk. With this guarantee, Shaolin said, she didn't come. Impossible. Bai Juan turned around. His side profile was very good-looking. Shaolin was speechless. Why did he have to discuss this kind of thing with a drunkard? Chapter 1172. After about 10 seconds, Bai Juan asked Shaolin again. The youth looked very stubborn, as if he had to have an answer. Why did you say that she didn't come? Shaolin felt that at this time it was best for him to answer properly. There's no sign of her down there. Then it should be because it's not time yet. Bai Juan sat down again. He was really too calm. There was no sign of him being drunk at all. However, from what he said, he was already very drunk. She'll come after school. At this time, Li Hailu also woke up. He looked at Bai Juan in disbelief as he started to sit beside the desk and do his homework. He had a fucking expression on his face. Brother, what's going on? He drank too much, Shaolin whispered in his ear. Bai Juan raised his eyes again. There's still no one. No. Shaolin already had the experience to deal with it. He took the opportunity to ask, why don't we go and pick Aju up from school? No. Bai Juan's voice was stiff. It was obvious that his mood had changed. Li Hailu and Shaolin looked at each other. They had only seen Master Bai's duplicitous appearance a few times in a year. The clock began to tick. Bai Juan had been asking the same question for almost half an hour. The two of them could not hold on any longer. Li Hailu hugged the red wine bottle. Bai Juan finished all three of their homework and was about to raise his head to ask. Li Hailu interrupted him. Master Bai, no one is looking for you. This was already the 20th time. Why did he always ask the same question? Li Hailu was about to cry. He would rather do his homework than answer the same question all the time. Thinking of this, he looked at his brother's obviously cold face, cleared his throat and said, Bai Juan, why don't we discuss what to eat? You didn't eat much just now. Aren't you hungry now? Make a soup of tofu. Don't put meat in it. Aju can't eat meat, so she likes to eat. Forget it, you can make anything. Bai Juan turned his face sideways, his eyes seemed to be a little cold. This is not the Bai family and she's not here. Li Hailu was really thankful. Bai Juan finally figured out where he was and what state he was in now. But who knew that it did not stop for a while? Bai Juan took out the laptop beside him again, plugged it in and prepared to turn it on. Are we still going to play? Li Hailu really felt that he did not have the energy to carry out another massacre in the game. Most importantly, it was already 9:30 p.m. He didn't sleep well last night. If he played all night today, he would definitely call his parents tomorrow. Master Bai, can we play tomorrow? Li Hailu is already exhausted. However, Bai Juan only glanced at him. Who said I wanted to play games? Then what are you doing with the notebook? Shaolin is still relatively calm. After all, he's a child. He's much more knowledgeable and can handle any situation. He's very talented in diplomacy. Bai Juan lowered his eyes and his black hair fell down. With a serious expression on his face, he said, log on to Weibo and post a comment. Posting comments on Weibo? After Xiao Lin heard this answer, he felt that he could not keep up with Lord Bai's train of thought. They only did live broadcasts and never used Weibo. Xiao Lin. Xiao Lin was a little surprised that he was named. As Bai Juan typed, he said, "Do you think I should also be a celebrity?" Lord Bai, wake up please. You're the only grandson of the Bai family. You want to be a celebrity? Then what should I do? A nurse? Li Hailu rubbed his chin. Being a nurse is not bad either. There are many beautiful women in this industry. Xiao Lin chuckled. He really did not want to evaluate his brother's IQ. Only Li Hailu would become a nurse in order to find a beautiful woman. First he had to figure out the problem. Chapter 1173. I don't have a mask. This time, Li Hailu's refusal was very justified. Bai Juan narrowed his eyes and looked at him for a while. You don't have a mask and you still gave us wine to drink? Master Li was speechless. Was there any connection? Just as his face was filled with confusion, Bai Juan stood up, pushed the door open and said to the outside, Uncle Li Hailu stole your wine to drink. That voice was not loud at all. But the person standing downstairs was Master Li's father. Master Li was completely petrified. Fuck brother, you can't be serious, Bai Juan, you traitor. When Master Li's father came up he was quite calm. His gaze swept across the room and he was very dignified. You come out. Master Li directly lay on the bed looking as if he was not going out. He shouted, I didn't drink much. If you don't believe me you can ask Xiao Lin. It was the two of them who drank. In fact, that was indeed the case. However, Xiao Lin was the most convincing one among them. Before Master Li came up, this guy had already taken an English book and held it in his hand. Hailu, you can't blame us for your mistakes. We're here to tutor you. Have you forgotten? Li Bawang glared at him. Tuition my ass. Shut up. Master Li's father pulled his son's ear and turned to Xiao Lin with a very amiable smile. Xiao Lin, Xiao Jun, the two of you wait for a while. After I teach this brat a lesson I'll bring him up. Okay, uncle, as you wish. Master Li was speechless. He was wronged. Why was he the only one who looked like he had drunk wine? It was fair. You brat, you don't learn good things all day. How old are you to steal wine to drink? Just like that, the day passed by in such a chaotic manner. Bai Juan did not know how he fell asleep. At that time he still did not understand what it felt like to have an empty heart. What made Master Li feel fortunate was that at least after drinking, Master Bai did not play all night. From about 10 o'clock the three friends slept on the floor respectively. You're sleeping on the floor instead of a bed? When little gangster Li's mother came to deliver the fruit platter, she looked at the three teenagers and shook her head with a chuckle. Little gangster Li's father watched from the side. You don't understand. I was like this when I was young. Our son has finally grown up but he doesn't sleep well. My hands itch when I see him. Of the three of them, Li Bawang was the only one who could do whatever he wanted. Bai Juan was the last to sleep. He even covered the other two with a thin blanket. The Li couple watched from outside. Is there something wrong with Xiao Juan's heart? Oh, I'm not sure. What's the matter? Li Hailu's father was so slow. You even said that your son deserved a beating. You're not much better. When have you ever seen little Juan like this? He stayed over at someone else's house unless it was that year. Now that you mention it, that's true. Mrs. Li was speechless. She glanced at the handsome man beside her and sighed. Why does our son's IQ follow yours? What's wrong with following me? It's useful for chasing after a wife. Mrs. Li smiled for a while and said, in the past year I thought that Xiao Juan had thought things through. After all, he has become much more cheerful. Brother Bai and sister Luo are no longer around and I only come back occasionally. Watch over Xiao Juan. If there's anything, talk to him more. I talked to Xiao Juan? Li Bawang's father really did not believe in his own ability. I'll go to the Bai family tomorrow and ask what's going on. That works too. However, none of them knew what he meant when he said those words. The next day at about 5 o'clock in the morning, little Aju was already preparing to return to the mountain. As soon as the big rooster in the courtyard crowed, little Aju carried her small tortoiseshell school bag and went out with the little white cat on her head. At that time Auntie Wang had not gotten up to make breakfast. Logically speaking, an ordinary child would not be able to push open the door of the Bai family's house. But little Aju had never been an ordinary child. When the door opened, little Aju quietly left the Bai family's house. When she passed through the courtyard, the breakfast in the cafeteria had just been prepared. The smell of steamed buns could be smelled from afar. Little Aju hesitated for a long time between the two options of going to buy 10 steamed buns and leaving early. In the end, she touched her little belly and chose the former. If you want to go back to the mountain, you have to bring enough dry food, little Aju said to the white cat on top of her head in a childish voice. Otherwise, you will be hungry on the way. The white cat meowed and wagged its tail behind her head. There was no one in the cafeteria at this time. After all, 5 o'clock was too early for breakfast. Little Aju, are you here to buy breakfast again? The steamed buns seller obviously knew the child. Little Aju nodded. I want 10 steamed buns this time. Uncle, can you help me wrap them in paper? Paper? The uncle who bought the steamed buns looked around and said to the little girl outside the window, wait for a while. After it was wrapped, he put it in a bag. Little Aju took it, put one in her mouth and walked out of the cafeteria with her short legs. At this time the road was not congested yet. However, there were not many buses around the military compound. Little Aju first looked left and right, then chose the right direction according to her memory. After walking for a long time, she finally saw some cars. At this time people also started to come out. When they saw such a little person walking on the street, they could not help but look back. Little Aju was originally very cute. She was wearing a small monk's robe and her big eyes were very clear. In addition, she had a big steamed bun in her mouth, and there was a white cat swaying above her head. She was like a doll that had walked out of a comic book. I remember that the car did not pass by this place. The little girl muttered to herself as she walked to the right. There was a small square on the other side and many people were exercising there. The little girl walked over and looked curiously. The old people were also looking at her. They thought to themselves, why isn't there an adult following behind this child? Little Aju held the big steamed bun in her 2 little paws and asked seriously, Grandpa, do you know how to get to the bus station? Bus station? The old man paused and asked patiently, little girl, which bus station are you looking for? The bus station that can go back to the mountain. As little Aju spoke, she squatted there like a little turtle. Grandpa, do you know? The old man frowned. The mountain? Child, why are you going to the mountain? I'm going back to ask my master some questions, little Aju said as she fiddled with the strap of her small school bag. Her serious look was very cute. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.